Welcome to StabMovies.com behind the mask of Stab 2. I'm writer and director Joshua Patrick Dudley, and I also play myself in the movie. When I first decided to do Stab 2, I really had no clue what I was going to do with the script. So the first thing I did was to write to the cast of the reboot and see who wanted to come back. And pretty much everybody wanted to come back, which is always really a nice feeling to know that people want to come back and work with you again. But I really had no idea where I was going to go with the storyline. I did have a few actors that were skeptical about coming back, or they weren't sure if they're going to be able to fit it into their schedules. And you'll notice that a couple of the people from the Stab reboot in the script of Stab 2 actually are either killed off screen, or there's an excuse for why they can't be there. And that's just because, you know, people have busy lives. We all work for free, and not everybody is able to come back constantly and do our movies. But I'm so grateful for everyone that's in them all the time. It means so much to me, and we always have so much fun making it. So after thinking for a while about what I wanted to do with the movie, I landed on the idea that was similar to Stab 5, where I wanted it to be real life. Where we would all play ourselves. I felt like a good majority of us that had been in the past Stab movies had the opportunity to play ourselves and have the fans know our actual names by playing ourselves as characters in the movies. And I thought that a lot of the people that had been recurring actors in our movies really kind of deserved the chance to have their actual names set on screen too. And that's kind of where that idea stemmed from, was just to get them a little more recognition for their work and their free work, mind you. Like I said, nobody gets paid for being in our movies or helping out with our movies. But truly, I do think that's one of the best things about making these movies, is that not only do we make them for our fans, you guys, but we make them for fun, and it's a giant collaborative process. So many people come together to work on something, and just to have that goal that we're all trying to reach together, and we're all working together. And like I said, again, nobody gets paid. So it's really, really super cool. All the actors work for free. The composers work for free. My special effects guy works for free. So it's really, really, really awesome that people want to get together and still do something that's just for the love of doing something in filmmaking. So after I came up with the idea for it to be reality and for everyone to play themselves, I kind of decided that I wanted to switch up the dynamic of the characters a lot too, and have people play things that they haven't got to play before. So my character tends to always be a bad guy. I'm always the villain, I'm always the killer, I'm always a bitch. So I really wanted to play the opposite of that. The last movie I got to play a stoner, but I still ended up as a killer in the Stab reboot. So I wanted to be either a victim or someone that the audience could relate to more, like they've been in a similar situation, which it's a tough situation. Like, not a lot of people have books and movies made about them, accusing them of exploiting someone else's trauma to make a movie for YouTube. But just in general, I wanted to be a normal person and not a killer, not a bad guy. So then I tried to decide what I was gonna do with all the other actors.
Hi, I'm Rachel Alexandria Arnold, and I play Rachel Alexandria Arnold for Stab 2. So my character's a little different in Stab 2 than we've seen in the past. She separated herself from Joshua. She's a best-selling author. She sold rights of her book to Lifetime for a Lifetime movie that's been made. She's employed both Sherry and Ashley, and she's going on a national book tour. So Rachel separated herself from Joshua in this book because she received a letter that basically not insinuated, but fully called out that Joshua was using someone's real life trauma for his movies. And so this upset her because Rachel is very empathetic, as you've seen in, films before, and she just felt like everything was fraudulent. And so she based it all off of this. She made her, she believed what she saw, she made her book, and just kind of moved forward without Joshua. Later, obviously, we realized that the letter was forged, and you get to watch that transition back from feeling like everything was a lie to kind of mending that relationship with Joshua. I would say that this representation of my character is probably the closest to myself that it's been, because it really just, it's not because I'm, this best-selling author, but just because I'm a real human. I feel like there's less pretense. There's not, the struggle back and forth of, who's in charge, or, there's not that duo anymore. It's broken up, and you just kind of get to see Rachel by herself and how she kind of handles the world when she's not part of that duo that she has been before.
Hey, Stabbers! I'm Corey Dudley, and I played Officer Corey Dudley in Stab 2. I'm sure you know by now I'm Josh's real-life cousin, So playing his cousin on screen isn't that much different, I guess. I was quite surprised to find out that I was playing a cop. Far from reality. Officer Dudley is an officer with the Manchester Police Department. It's kind of Josh's babysitter. Not really emotional towards anything except Josh, I'd say. More of the white Sam Jackson. But it was really interesting trying to get into that role and be that stone cold, straight edge, only business type of guy, you know?
Hi, I'm Ashley Swank, and I play Ashley Swank in Stab 2. My role in this movie is Rachel's manager. I am helping her navigate the horrible waters of superstardom and just try to get us to the end. I'm just sick of everybody's shit. And that is the one thing that I can actually draw from myself, because I'm just sick of everybody's shit, man. So I just built off that. I think I had more fun in this movie. Just the first one, I was kind of nervous and afraid to over emote, and I didn't want it to look cheesy. But this one, I was just like, fuck it. Let's have fun with that. So I had a lot more fun filming this one.
I'm Ethan Rogers. You may know me from such horror films as Black Vulture and Stray. In this film, I play Ethan Rogers. As far as characters go that I've taken on, this was by far one of the most complex. Ethan is he's like an onion. You know how onions have layers and you've got to peel them back? That's how I would describe stepping into the shoes of the character Ethan Rogers. My part in Stab 2, it's a very, very focal part. He's Josh's only friend. At this point in the story, Josh finds himself at a very low place, and Ethan acts as kind of a bridge to the outside world for Josh. So he's very, very focal to pushing the story forward in a lot of ways that people wouldn't necessarily expect, even though he gets treated like garbage by the rest of the cast through the rest of the movie.
I'm Christopher Jakes. I play Chris Jakes in Stab 2. So I just played myself in the movie along with my girlfriend Mackenzie.
Fiance.
It was actually in our own condo as well, so it was kind of just like playing like whatever you do in your usual life.
I'm Mackenzie Sweet, and I play myself in Stab 2. Chris just asked me one day, he was like, hey, my friend Josh wants to make a movie, and he asked if you want to be in it. And considering that Josh was the one kissing my fiance last time, I figured, yeah, it'd probably be a good idea that I volunteer to hopefully be the one doing that this time. And I had done some stage stuff before, but I figured, you know, Chris and his brother do all these movies, it'd be so fun to try, so I did.
Hi, I'm Erica Audie. I play Claire Matthews and myself in Stab 2. So my friend Chris actually told me about Stab 2 and what Josh was doing. He let me know that Josh needed a lead now because the other girl, I guess, quit. So I contacted him on Instagram and I was like, I want in, because I've always been a super Ghostface Scream fan. I even have a Ghostface tattoo, and that's how it all happened. So when I first got the script, I really liked it. I read like the whole thing in like one night because I was super excited about it. I just really did my best and tried to get into the character as much as I could. Claire Matthews, she was way more dramatic than my character, so you know, we had to bring the drama up a little bit with her, but yeah, it was fun though.
Hi, I'm Henry Collenbear. I play the killer fan / Uber driver, neither of which has a name, in Stab 2.
I'm Emily Powell. I play myself and Piper Belmont in Stab 2. I would say Piper's kind of similar to Emily's character, myself, so there wasn't too much of a difference.
Hi, my name is Dalen Castile. I play movie Joshua and myself in Stab 2. Playing a version of Joshua was very interesting. I had to play him a little bit over dramatic because I didn't want to get him too correctly, and I just watched a lot of videos with him, learned his mannerisms, and I'm not going to say I got it down completely, but I think I got in a close realm, and it was very fun playing him. I got involved in Stab 2 by being contacted through Joshua from a comment I made on a YouTube video about 10 years ago. And so I sent in an audition, and here I am. So I'm from Tennessee, so I flew thousands of miles to be here. I was very excited, very, very excited. And I decided to stay at the piece of shit hotel from the previous Stab, because I thought that would be fun. Yeah, I really like the Stab movies. But I'm from Tennessee, and New Hampshire is a whole new experience for me.
Hi, I'm Mia Gaudette, and I play movie Hannah and myself, Mia, in Stab 2. I got involved in Stab 2 when an actress kind of stepped down from the role. Josh was looking for a blonde actress. I've never acted before, but kind of thought it seemed like fun. Just like I already knew Josh, I knew Emily already as well. And that's one of the reasons why I agreed to do this, because I'm really comfortable with Josh. He's a lot of fun. I feel the same way about Emily. So it just made me feel so much better coming to this where I've never done it before, and it was really great to see Emily again and kind of spend some time with her.
My name is Mark Haggett. I play myself, or an evil version of myself, in Stab 2.
So the opening scene is actually the very first thing that we filmed, which we don't usually film in order. So that was kind of interesting that we actually started with the opening and we almost ended with the ending this time. But the opening scene, the very first night of filming, was just me by myself. So there's a bunch of parts during the opening where I'm completely alone. After Hannah and I have our little banter on the couch, I get up and go to the bathroom. So the very first thing I filmed was me peeing. Fake peeing, essentially, for the movie. And then the next thing I filmed, I moved into me coming out of the bathroom and looking for Hannah. And then I get the phone call and blah, 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 blah. So all of that was just shot with me putting a camera on the tripod, trying to set up the camera to be focused on me and frame myself in a shot. And then I just kind of went for it on my own, which you'll see in the movie doesn't always work great. Sometimes I'm like way too far to one side of the shot, or the lighting isn't quite right in certain areas. It presented a lot of challenges filming alone. That phone call was so hard to film. I had the lines from Michael, who plays the voice of Ghostface in our movies. I had the lines pre-recorded on my phone with enough space in between them that I could say my lines and that he would talk again. So I'd essentially have to push play on my phone, put the phone up to my ear, and I had the phone on speakerphone, so it was actually like super, super, super loud, just because I wanted to be able to hear the audio in the camera later when I went back into editing. So not only was I getting my eardrum blown out, but my face kept touching my phone and it would pause the lines. So there's some in the bloopers that you see with me like going, why isn't this working? Because every time I turned around, my face would bump into the phone and then the killer would stop talking to me. So that was super, super challenging to film, and it was one of the parts that I wish I had somebody else there running the camera so that all the shots weren't super stationary and static. But, you know, in the end, it worked out as best as it could. So then night 2 of filming, Hannah came with her current boyfriend at the time named Matthew, because Matthew was going to be in the killer's costume for us because I didn't have a stunt person to play Ghostface.
I'm Matthew Nee. I played Ghostface for a brief moment where I got to kill my girlfriend, Hannah. My introduction to Stab was when this random character, Joshua, showed up at our house with a ridiculous number of duct tape rolls, where we had to make the mannequin of Hannah in order for me to throw her off the balcony. I was a little confused at first, but it was an interesting experience. We became friends, and later asked me if I could become Ghostface and kill my girlfriend.
So Hannah and Matthew came, and Hannah and I ran our lines a bunch. And then, again, it was me setting up the camera, pointing it at us, making sure we were in focus, and then recording. And the autofocus on this camera is like, it's very picky. If you move just slightly, it kind of shifts the focus a lot. So there's a lot of weird cuts in the opening scene because I'm trying to cut away from shots that went out of focus, even if it was just for a half a second, because to me it was starting to get really distracting. But Hannah and I had a lot of fun. It was a decently long night of filming, and I don't think Hannah and Matthew expected it to be that long, but it was.
Probably around 8 o'clock when I showed up, and long day at work, tired, long process. It was a good process though. A lot of great direction from Joshua. Very hot inside the suit, I will attest to that, and pretty bloody. You got blood pretty much everywhere.
With this film, I tried to condense everybody's schedule as much as possible. Like, I had copies of calendars that everybody filled out their availability on, and I kind of worked from that, and I was just like, So the real trick to it was just to make really long filming days so that people could get all their filming over with in like 1, 2, 3 days, basically.
My favorite part of filming this movie, I would say, was how great the schedule was. This is the first time that we really were kind of forced to kind of condense filming. And so I had a total of like 4.5 days of filming, which is very unusual for any movie, let alone one of ours. And so that was awesome. It really allowed me to kind of focus day by day on what lines I had to do and work on the character for those individual scenes, which for my ADHD brain was fantastic.
So there are only a couple of us that had to be here more than like 2 or 3 times. Some like I said, some people only 1 time. So Hannah was a one-timer. So we did the entire opening scene in 1 night, and it really didn't get challenging until we got to the part with the killer coming in, because Matthew's not an actor and he's never really done anything like that before either. So trying to teach him stunt move, trying to direct Hannah on how to take a stab or how to fall or how to give him a headbutt, it was really challenging. But it was nice because I wasn't in front of the camera during those parts, so I really just got to direct and point the camera and run with it. I think a lot of people struggle with physicality, and we don't have stunt performers on set. We don't hire stunt guys to come in that look like the other actors or actresses and dress them in the same outfits or anything. You know, it's the actual actors that have to do all their own stunts and fighting and stuff like that.
I didn't get hurt in the costume at all, no. But somehow my chin stabbed Hannah in the back of the head.
I wanted to throw Hannah off the balcony as kind of like a tribute to C.C. Cooper in Scream 2, and it was just something I've wanted to do in a lot of our movies, and we've never really been able to practically do it, and I didn't want to have to spend a ton of money on building a set so we could throw someone over a fake balcony. So we made what I call the Hannekin. It is a duct tape dummy that we made by having Hannah. I put these old clothes on Hannah, then we wrapped duct tape around her entire body, and I cut the duct tape off of her up the sides of her legs and up the sides of her sleeves and down her, I think down the back, yeah. And then I duct taped it all back together. I put a foam mannequin head on it. I painted the whole thing skin tone. I put like rubber gloves for hands. And then I put a wig on it. And then we had 2 exact outfits. Hannah went out and bought 2 outfits so that she could have one and the mannequin could have one. And I had to keep kind of replicating the injuries. So every time Hannah got stabbed, we had to replicate it on the mannequin to make sure that it was there too. Or the Hannekin. I really got a kick out of calling it the Hannekin. It was a good time. The Hannekin proved to be tricky, and if you look closely in the shots of her going over the balcony, we forgot to put Hannah's shoes on the mannequin. It was the only thing we didn't have a duplicate of. So we didn't have a second pair of shoes, so it didn't click in any of our heads that Hannah's shoes had to come off her feet and go onto the Hannekin. So if you look close, you could tell it's just duct tape feet falling through the air. But we did a couple of different angles of that, and Matthew brilliantly decided to reenact some of the struggle on the balcony before he threw Hannah over, or the Hannekin over the balcony. So it was actually really cool the way it worked out, because I was able to cut to the same position that Hannah was in, but it was the mannequin, and he was able to kind of move her around and struggle with her before he threw her over. And inside of the Hannekin, there was a brick in the back of it, so that it would make her body fall first. Because I was kind of hoping her arms and her legs would go up in the air, but they didn't really move as much as I wanted them to. But that's how I made sure that it would sink and she would land on her back and not like on her side or something like that too. But I do regret, again, not putting the shoes on there, because most of the shots that we got of the Hannekin hitting the ground, the feet went whoop and like kicked over her head. So I used the one angle we have that didn't show the feet, where it was like a side angle when he throws her off the balcony, and that one actually played out the best, I think. The third night of filming was with me and Mark Haggett and Chris Jones and my cousin Corey. That was another really, really long night. We actually filmed the pizza guy's death first, played by Chris Jones, who that part was actually just written for him. After casting was complete, he's friends with my cousin Corey, and my cousin was like, oh, hey, my buddy Chris wants to be in it too. And I'm like, crap, I already filled all the roles, and I really want to, Corey helps me out a lot. He's a great guy. He's always on time. He always shows up and knows his lines. So it's like, okay, I'm going to find something for your friend. So I just wrote in the teeniest, tiniest little thing. And Chris was like such a sweet guy, but it was so hilarious to work with him. Like, he's smiling the whole time he gets stabbed in the head. So his death scene got cut really short.
I got to kill the pizza guy. I had to stab him in the side of the head with like this rubber knife and try not to hurt him, It's not very easy, once again, when you can't see. So, a few takes of that. Nice dead, blood, all the good stuff.
The pizza man, my friend Chris, he, I don't think he was ready for how much blood was going to get dumped on him. How many times, we had to refilm, if we did a different take or whatnot. More blood, more blood, more blood.
Mark came to play the killer, which I don't think he knew he was going to be the killer in the costume that night. He thought he was just going to, someone else was going to perform all the stunts and he would take off the mask and be there. But Mark's great in the costume, so I thought he would know, but I don't think he did. So he showed up and he was like, oh, I have to do what? And it was a big, big, big scene with stunts and fighting. And before he would put on the costume, we kind of rehearsed a bunch to know what the basic actions of the scene were gonna be.
Big fight choreography going on, throwing Josh over his kitchen table. That was pretty fun. During one of the parts, Josh hits me over the face with a picture frame. Had a nice solid knot on my forehead because the mask is not very padded. Ended up with me getting shot in the back of the head. Blood and brain and everything all over the place.
There were some things in that sequence that didn't fully make the opening. Like when I got my arm broken, we actually put my outfit onto the mannequin and we taped like a wooden paint stirrer inside the arm so that when Mark snapped my arm, you could actually kind of see like a bone pop out. And it looked really, really neat, but the angle of the camera and everything just didn't work well enough for me to actually use the shot in the movie. Another really challenging thing was getting a knife to stick into my back. Originally, I was gonna build a harness that had a knife already sticking out of it, and I just ran out of time before filming, so we ended up duct taping a knife that I had cut in half to my back, and you can kind of watch it wobble the whole time.
So as the opening killer, it's kind of like Josh paying me back for me not being able to be the psycho killer in the, I think it was Stab 7, the rebooted Stab 7 if I am correct. So I went through that, I kind of had a little bit of experience playing a psycho killer. So I kind of just channeled a little bit of that into there, mixed with if I were to get really upset myself. That was pretty fun, It's always fun getting to play the darker side of yourself. You know what I mean?
Corey sat there all night long and helped out with filming while Mark and I were doing all the stunts and stuff like that. And Chris had already gone because we had already killed him. And Corey literally fell asleep on my couch at one point without even knowing, and he kind of started snoring. It was like that half sleep, half awake thing where you don't know that you're sleeping. So I had to be like, hey Corey, stop snoring, we're still filming. So finally, by the time that it came to shoot Corey's entrance into the scene, he was just like a zombie, and I felt so bad for him.
I'm sure you know by now, I'm Josh's real life cousin, so playing his cousin on screen isn't that much different, I guess. I was quite surprised to find out that I was playing a cop. Far from reality. Officer Dudley is an officer with the Manchester Police Department. It's kind of Josh's babysitter. Not really emotional towards anything except Josh, I'd say. More of the white Sam Jackson. But it was really interesting trying to get into that role and be that stone cold, straight edge, only business type of guy, So the opening scene was pretty fun to film. It fun, but it went late. We were here till about, 2 in the morning?
We wrapped filming for the night. We finished the scene, and I sent everyone home. And then when I watched the footage back, I remember just messaging Mark and Corey and be like, prepare yourselves for reshoots, because that didn't quite work.
Had to come back for reshoots because there was some stuff that didn't quite come into focus, unfortunately. So I pretty much redid the ending part and I think a couple of the stunts.
That opening scene had to get reshot quite a bit. I think a lot of it had to do with how late it ran too. Everyone was just tired and exhausted. So you get that tired, you start flubbing your lines, stuff doesn't come out right. So again, come back, redo it.
We've never really done a lot of reshoots on the other movies because we've never really had the time to, or maybe even the ambition to. There was stuff that I've always wanted to fix but couldn't fix, and this time, this movie, Stab 2, had a lot of reshoots. And still, some of them didn't always necessarily work perfectly either, but they were better than what we had. So somewhere throughout the filming timeline, Mark came back and refilmed all of his dialogue. And Corey came back and refilmed from his entrance with all of his lines, and we kind of switched up the motion of the scene too, and had him like lean down to me and hold my hand while he was radioing in, because the first time we done it, we were all so tired. He was just kind of standing there, and I didn't think to direct him, oh, your cousin's dying, you should be panicking. So he was just kind of radioing and like looking down at me like, don't worry, bro, you're gonna live. This movie takes place in summer, which I swore after Stab 6 I was never gonna do again, but I did it again. People tend to have a little bit more free time and openness in their availability in summertime, so that's just kind of what we went for, because originally it was going to be a Halloween movie, but I wanted to release it on Halloween, so fall doesn't last a super long time with all the pretty colors of leaves, so it's a summertime movie instead. This summer in New Hampshire was one of the hottest summers we've had in a long time. There were many days that were over 100 degrees. And luckily we only filmed on a couple of the super stupid hot days, but 98% of filming took place on extremely hot days, except for the opening scene, because it was filmed so far ahead of the rest of the schedule that it was actually still kind of chilly out when we started filming that scene. But by the time we moved into the rest of filming, it was 1,000 degrees.
We tend to shoot in not the greatest weather, just because we have to have enough time to edit. And so this film was filmed in July and August, and it was so hot. Things that people don't think about when you film is that you really have to reduce your noise. So any fans or ACs, those all have to be turned off for the most part. Josh did make some sacrifices for us in the truly ungodly heat, which was nice of him, but that just usually means you're just baking while you're filming, on top of all the lights, of course.
The second scene that we actually filmed was the scene between me and what was later Erica's character, but started off as Jennifer's character, where we're in my house talking after they had all come, the rest of the Stabbed in the Back cast had come and gone, and it was just me and Erica, and then Corey enters, but it was with Jennifer. So Jennifer and I filmed the scene with Corey, and that was the night we actually filmed Corey's death scene too. And then we filmed the scene where we run down the stairs and we run out and run into Ethan. And that's where that scene had ended that night. And that was the only thing that Jennifer actually filmed for the movie before she had to leave production because of some family stuff she had going on. So we had to refilm that with the new actress, Erica. She didn't quite have that like girl next door look that I was looking for to be like the Sydney, but she was fantastic, and I was so grateful to have her. And she was one of the actors, like many of the actors in this movie, that drove well over an hour to be here every day for filming. So it was super cool, but we had to refilm the scene that we had filmed with Jennifer already. So some of it was already done. Like I said, the part where Corey dies outside of the door had already been completed, so we kind of had to film around that.
My death scene, that was wild. A lot of it is special effects, I don't actually get shot in the face, but the blood is gross. I don't recommend just having it hang out in your mouth. A lot of work went into it, made a giant mess. Pretty fun though.
I get to kill off Corey, and that was my first kind of instance of just seeing how bloody this thing was going to be, and it was friggin' awesome. Like, he sprays the blood all over the window. It was absolutely awesome. So it was a good time right off the bat, and I kind of got addicted to getting into the Ghostface suit as hard as it was. I'm not gonna lie, like, I felt like when I was in the suit, maybe it was partially because it was 200 degrees in the fucking thing, but I took direction way better when I was in the costume than when I was out of the costume. It was just, I don't know, it was kind of weird. I kind of pulled off a killer instinct in the thing. It was pretty fun. Yeah, so day one, I get introduced to the knives that I'm going to be using, and one's like a retractable one or a rubber one, and the other one is like a real freaking metal knife. Like, this thing is scary as shit. And like, the first stab that I actually had to do, thank God it was like on a styrofoam dummy, but it was scary whenever I ended up having to switch into the real one, because I'm like, oh my God, if I stab somebody with this thing, like, I'm gonna freak out. Like, they're gonna freak out more. But yeah, so I got more and more used to that too, which was a little even more strange that I was getting used to holding the real knife.
And that night, I got so lucky, and my buddy Matt came and helped out with the camera work so that I didn't have to keep jumping back and forth, and that's so we could actually have some motion in the shot. And Matt, if you're watching this, I'm so grateful for you. Like, I wish I could have had you film more of the scenes that I was in, because it just, everything came out so good. And I was so grateful for him to be there. It just made it so much easier to just kind of direct everyone and then act and not have to worry about pointing the camera and focusing the camera and blah, 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 blah. So that was still a pretty long night of filming, and there was a lot of fun stuff behind the scenes of us like goofing off, because whenever there's a big group of us on set, it always gets a little more wild than when it's just like one or two people. So Ethan had already filmed that too, so he was pretty well practiced on that, so that part went pretty smoothly.
The first scenes I filmed was with Jen Drummond, a phenomenal New England actress. Unfortunately, Jen had to drop from the project, and Erica stepped in as the character. Both actresses were phenomenal to work with. Erica was a lot of fun. She picked everything right up.
And we were outside with Ethan too, and he just, like, we were supposed to be wicked serious and like really just like exasperated, like, you know, like frightened. And Josh had this scene where he was like saying, "What are you doing here?" He kept saying, "What are you doing here?" But it was just so funny to me. Like, his face looked so funny. I could not stop laughing at that.
So once we got into the car and drove away, we went to this we drove around a couple of streets in Manchester to get some shots, and then we went to this like parking lot of like a closed down garage or something like that, which was actually near a few people's houses, and we could see like lights turning on, so we were getting nervous that people were going to be like, "What are you doing?" because nobody really knew we were there. And then the car was actually stationary, and we bounced the camera up and down to make it look like the car was moving. And then I gave Corey some of my exterior lighting that we use for some of the nighttime scenes when we shoot outside. And I had him do these big circles with it so it looked like the street lamps moving above us, which is actually something that we started doing way back in the Gates short film. So many years ago now, we actually have used that little technique, and we just haven't needed to do it because we haven't really had a lot of other car scenes with people driving. And if we did, they were actually driving the cars. But because there was audio, I wanted it to be stationary, which didn't end up working out in the end anyways, because we don't have external mics. Like, we use the camera's audio, so we're not wearing mics, and we don't have like a boom mic, so the microphone's just on top of the camera as I'm pointing to it, like you can see it. But so for filming outside the car, you don't really catch the audio. You could, but it sounded like we were really far away. So then we did shots of us filming inside the car, but you could kind of see that we weren't moving on the shots of the inside of the car. So that got super tricky. So we had to ADR that, additional dialogue recording. We had to add in the audio and re-record it, which sometimes I wish we could just do that for all the scenes, but it is such a pain in the butt, because you have to make sure every word you say lines up with your mouth again, and they don't always line up. So it was super challenging.
When we weren't filming, we were all laughing and like joking, and it was super fun and funny, like when we weren't filming. And then Josh would be like, "Okay, go." And we're all just like trying to like get back into like our moody, angry, sad, you know, characters, afraid, whatever it was. There was a lot of running, and you know, we were trying to get away, and we ended up in Josh's car. And I remember this one scene where he had to like slam on the brakes, but every time he slammed on the brakes, he like, I can't remember what the line was, but he said something like funny to me, and we both had to pretend like we're like, you know, like getting pushed forward because of the brakes. But I couldn't stop laughing at that. That was a super long night of shooting. We were on different streets in Manchester, doing the different scenes. I remember like one scene was also in the car, but we were stopped, and we were kind of on this like dead end road with like houses surrounding us. It was like almost midnight, and Corey's outside like with the light in front of the car, like to make it look like we were driving. And I just remember thinking like, oh my god, people are gonna come out here and be like, "What are you guys doing?" But like no one ever came out, so that was good. Oh, the cops did come one night. It was the same night with Ethan where I couldn't stop laughing, because we were screaming a lot too outside, and we heard like police sirens, like, and they kept driving back and forth like from the house, in front of the house and stuff, but like they never came down the driveway. But like we knew it was probably from us, because we were just screaming out in the middle of the driveway.
So all of the lifetime scenes that you see play out in the movie, including in the opening scene, weren't actually filmed in time to be shown in those scenes. So they're not actually on those TVs. They were filmed later in the filming schedule and then added back in during editing and post-production. So a little movie magic there.
This was the first time that even though I had been, a part of production for a movie within a movie for the films, this is the first time that I was legitimately in a movie within a movie. And you'll see that in the lifetime scenes. I got to film with an out-of-stater, Dalen, who was wonderful to work with. That was the very first scene that I filmed, which was kind of nice because it allowed me to be super over the top and just cheesy like you would expect watching a Lifetime movie.
Filming was awesome. It was an amazing experience, a lot of laughs, very laid back, but at the same time very serious. It was really great. 10 stars. My favorite scene that I filmed was the scene with me and Rachel when we got into an argument in the kitchen for the Lifetime movie.
So we had another scene where Claire Matthews, she was getting chased by the ghost, and I was running up the stairs getting chased by the ghost. We were up in this attic for a little bit, but that was like another 500 degrees, sweating bullets. I got to hit him in the head with the crowbar, so that was great. And I had no experience with doing anything stunt, nothing. That was actually really fun. I mean, the crowbar wasn't a real crowbar, it was spongy, but that was fun, just hitting someone. He was hit me hard with it. I'm like, are you sure?
That was really my first real chase scene in the ghost suit, and it was scary as shit because not only was it hot, but I was so scared that I was gonna trip over the fucking rope going up these stairs, and they were super steep stairs and stuff. And I'm chasing after Erica in the scene, and it was also my first time of actually the abuse that I was about to fucking take in this movie. There's a crowbar that just kind of comes out of left field, and I'm like, yeah, hit me with it, no problem. That was the tip of the iceberg for this movie.
The wig I wore for Claire Matthews was pretty funny. I mean, I naturally have really dark hair anyway, but the bangs were it was hilarious. We had to keep moving the wig around to cover up my blonde underneath. It was a fun time.
Day 2 and day 3 of filming were straight to the hotel. So that was both with Sherry and Ashley.
So my first day of filming, we were at the hotel. I have dubbed it the Hepatitis Hilton. It was not a nice hotel. The AC did not work. It was very hot. The couch made fart noises when you sat on it. So the couch was immediately not allowed in the movie.
The hotel had the worst air conditioning ever. Weird things happened at the hotel just in general, not so much with filming, but just the set itself. We filmed in a real hotel that's in Manchester. It's a pretty nice hotel. The AC wasn't working, well at least. And it was so bad that Josh actually let us film with the AC on because it was better than nothing, but it still wasn't great. What was neat about filming, at least in the hotel, is that we ran the script in order. That's how we filmed things. So we went, you see me coming back from the book signing and kind of realizing the book signing I was just at was in Manchester, even though I had sworn never to be in Manchester. My assistants, I would say my assistants because we don't really know what Sherry's title is. She keeps changing it. But my staff basically tricked me for publicity to come back to Manchester. And that's kind of what starts the whole thing for me. I realize I'm not where I want to be, and then I start seeing stuff happen.
It's actually a lot of fun playing this character because I got to be just instead of passive aggressive like my normal life, I got to just be aggressive, and I got to talk down to her. I got to be very tell her what's up. I love Sherry to pieces, so in between every take we would just be laughing because this was so not like us in either way. Sherry's actually very nice and kind of reserved in a way, so her character being like super out for clicks and likes is not like her. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got to be mean.
Because it was so hot, we had to leave the ACs on, so the audio in that is just horrendous, which is something I've been trying to avoid ever since Stab 6, which was the same thing. It was like central air conditioning unit that's just constantly on, making all this noise in the background and making it super hard to hear the lines, and there's this constant whir in the background. So in the editing program later, I put some effects on it to try to get rid of it, but it kind of makes people sound like they're talking in like a tin can. So some of the audio in these scenes aren't great, but we had to, or we would have died in the 100,000 degree weather. We had to leave some of the fans and stuff on, and the ACs. It certainly provided its own challenges, though.
Then we move to Erica coming and basically talking to me. Erica's, you know, an actress from the Lifetime movie. She's coming to talk to me because she hasn't found any information about, you know, this character that's supposed to be real. And she just feels like, to be true to herself, she needs to bring it up to me, and she also is not sure she wants to be in the next movie. And so we kind of have that discussion where I'm like, you know, take your time, we can think about it, but at the same time, I know that the only proof I went off of for this book is that letter. And so I'm basically forcing myself to be confident to her that, yes, I did my research, don't worry about it, everything's fine, but in the back of my head, I'm starting to wonder if I've made a mistake at this point.
So the hotel scene, I had a lot of lines that day, and I was already super nervous about it, which didn't help me at all. For the life of me, I could not get out the words. Like, I couldn't remember my lines. But we ended up getting it after like the 100th take. I kept saying fuck a lot, and Josh put together a fuck montage for me for the bloopers. But yeah, that was actually a pretty short day. It was just like a couple hours, but that was the only time where I could not remember my lines. Yeah, I was hot sometimes, like throughout the movie, but I'm just like, I just liked doing it so much. I didn't really care about the heat too much.
So the next scene that we filmed was my phone call. And this was the first time that I had sort of an elaborate phone call. I've received phone calls in prior films from the killer, but they were sort of me already taking them very seriously. And this one very much was not serious at first. I think just because, you know, with the Lifetime movie and the rise of the book, I kind of had almost swapped places with Josh's character, where he was kind of used to that sort of fame and those types of fans. And so even though I may not have known it, I didn't really take it seriously.
And that one was super, super challenging because we didn't have the voice of the killer recorded like we usually do. Michael hadn't sent us the lines yet. Henry came because he was filming a scene later, and he was reading the lines, and I'm like, you have to talk slow because Michael, when he does the line, talks slow and scary, so we have to buy him enough time. And that got a little bit tricky during editing, trying to make sure that there was enough space, but not too much space for these lines to fit in. So luckily it all worked out, and Michael did end up having to re-record a few lines throughout the movie that just didn't fit in the spaces that I had left because we didn't have his lines for those scenes, but they all worked out in the end. But the shot of Rachel getting the phone call and staying on the phone had to be done in one take because there was really nothing else to cut to. I do actually cut to the TV a couple of times, but just in case I wanted it all in one take. So Rachel killed it. Like, to know that many lines back to back and to bounce off someone reading you the killer's lines, I was super, super impressed with Rachel. The entire hotel day, they all did so good with their lines. I was so impressed. That shot of Rachel on the phone is actually one of the things in the movie I wish I could refilm, because I don't know how I didn't notice it, but Rachel's just not in focus the whole time. She's a little bit blurry, and the focus seems to be on the lamp behind her, and I'm not sure why, and that was multiple takes later too, so I wish I had noticed it while we were filming. I don't have an external monitor, so every time we film, I'm just looking at the display on the camera. So if it looks like it's in focus, we're usually good, but I'm not always in focus.
Also, I never realized how difficult it was just to walk in a door, and you'll see probably lots of bloopers from that, because from the three of us entering after the book signing to Ashley and Sherry trying to come in after my phone call, there's got to be tons of footage of us just messing up, either not hearing the direction or laughing because we don't understand that we can still be heard behind the door. How many idiots does it take to walk through a door?
The entrance of Ashley and Sherry coming into the hotel room after was just fucking hilarious. Nobody could seem to keep a straight face during it. Ashley was really concerned with the door closing and it making too much noise because there were other people in this hotel, you know, so every time they had to step out into the hall and do an entrance, we sometimes had to stop because people were like walking by and they're just kind of casually waiting outside to come back in and film in the 1,000-degree heat.
Could not get that door right. Because when you just let the door go, it would just slam shut. It was so loud, and I was being a little bit self-conscious about not irritating the other guests at the hotel. But yeah, we just couldn't get through the door. And plus we were trying not to laugh because me and Sherry, we make each other laugh. Like, anytime the camera wasn't rolling, we were just howling, laughing. It was great.
The last scene that we filmed in the hotel was just that little scene between Rachel and Ashley where Rachel kind of finally reveals that the only evidence she ever had of Joshua stealing someone's life story and turning it into a movie was this random letter that she got in the mail. And I loved that aspect of the script because Rachel's character got this huge amount of fame and fortune, essentially, by accusing someone else of being a liar. But in reality, she was kind of lying because she knew she didn't really have any solid evidence besides this random letter that really anyone in the entire world could have written. So that was really, really funny to me. I don't know if other people will think it's funny, but I just loved that the whole idea of this breaking up of their friendship was really kind of based on nothing. But it was just a fun dynamic to write into the script. So that was another quick scene. Again, those hotel scenes, those girls really had those lines down. I don't know if the heat was the motivator or what was going on, but we just cranked through those scenes. So like I said, it was a really long day of filming. So after we wrapped at the hotel and everything was done there, we actually moved on to Sherry's death scene in the parking garage. And that, I would say, was like one of my favorite scenes to film and still to watch after. I like the lighting, I like the shots, I love Sherry's acting, I like Henry's performance as the killer, the special effects that my friend did for us with the flames and her skin burning, like everything just really, really worked on that scene. And we were filming in public and Sherry's a fantastic screamer, but cops kept circling the parking garage. So we were nervous that they were kind of trying to find where Sherry's scream was coming from. But I'm not sure that that was the case because where we were filming is like this downtown city area of Manchester. So the cops are always kind of there anyways, circling those blocks. But we had to be really careful that they didn't come in and like scold us for filming in there because nobody knew we were there. Guerrilla style filming. But everything that night went super duper smooth. Sherry freaking killed that death scene, pun intended. That was another one that we didn't have the lines for yet, so Henry again read the lines for her of the killer's voice on the phone call. And then Sherry just like went for it. And then Henry in the costume on these 100-degree days, I feel so bad for. What a fucking trooper, Henry. I love you so much for doing that for me.
The best part about shooting the scene with Sherry was that it was after she had already wrapped, but Josh and I are spending an exorbitant amount of time trying to get a fucking matchstick to light. And I have the gloves on, and we're like, don't burn the costume, but also get the flame. And we couldn't get it. And then I think there's a part where the match is supposed to drop into gasoline, and that's how we kill off Sherry in the scene. And with just dropping the match, it wouldn't fucking do it. We went through easily like 20 fucking matchsticks, and the last one, I don't even think we were shooting, we did it, and the fucking thing went. I'm like, you son of a bitch! It's like, I hate you. And but that scene, it looks really awesome on film. Like it's gonna be, you probably already have seen it at this point, but it was sick. Like the special effects on that are awesome, and you never really had to worry about the matchstick in the end. It was pretty good.
This is the only Stab movie that I didn't have to get into the costume once. Not at all. Usually I have to play Ghostface at least a couple of times, but not once this time. But Ghostface is actually played by 4 different people in this movie. I would say like 87% of Ghostface is played by Henry, who's revealed to be the killer at the end, as you all know now. But then in the opening, Mark played it, and like I said, Hannah's boyfriend was there to fill in during her part of the opening scene. And Henry actually does some of the opening scene stuff too. So the opening scene actually has 3 different people playing Ghostface. And then Dalen, when he gets his throat slit, was another friend of mine, Nick, that stood in and played the killer in the costume because Henry wasn't available that day and I had to film, and it was really special effects heavy scene. But yeah, Henry was in the costume for almost the entire movie in the 100-degree weather, which, what a freaking trooper, like I said. I was so impressed by him in the costume. So for Chris and Mackenzie's death scene, I actually went down to their condo because I had chatted with them and I loved their house. They showed me they had these awesome high ceilings, like kind of like my high ceilings, but in a different style. And they had all this cool like built-in blue lighting, and they had like really high skylight windows and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, I'd really like to film there if that's okay. And they were game because they didn't have to travel. And Mark's brother, and Mark actually lives really, really close to them too. So to save Henry a day in the costume, Mark volunteered to play the killer again.
The costume's hot. You can't really see too much, and when you're fighting people, you kind of just blind swinging and hoping that you hit the right spots. Get sweaty. Boots are usually pretty sweaty and not very comfortable. Combat boots aren't very comfortable unless you have like really nice insoles, which I don't have that. Josh gets mad at me every time I wear the boots because I always leave scuff marks all over his floor that he gets to clean up, along with all the blood and guts and everything else. I don't recommend making a scary movie that you have to wear a big burly costume like that, because it's not fun.
And that was just another really fun scene to film. They actually did 2 nights of filming instead of just 1. And the first night was all just the scene before the Ghostface comes in. So anything with them like watching the movie, or Chris in the shower, or Mackenzie getting the phone call, that was their first night of filming. And I remember being so impressed with Mackenzie. Like I had never met her in real life. I had just kind of asked Chris if his girlfriend wanted to be in the movie too. I wanted another character in the scene so it wasn't just him, so that he had someone to interact with. And she was game, so I didn't know if she was going to be a good actress, if it was going to take a lot of coaching, but she didn't take much coaching at all. Mackenzie was fantastic. Like, my mind was kind of blown. I'm like, wow, very subtle, very nuanced, very casual. Like, I very much enjoyed her performance. And I think she kind of gave Chris a different level of reality to his acting too, because it was his real girlfriend. Their scene played out really beautifully to me.
I was the iconic phone call this time, which was a great honor, and I am a huge horror movie fan. However, Chucky was not one of my top ones, so learning the lines of Don Mancini, I'm still not sure if I'm saying that correctly, was really fun and challenging, but I really enjoyed being the one picking up the phone this time. My favorite part of filming was the death scene. I really love being covered in blood and stabbed a bunch of times. I used to do haunted houses growing up, so that was, you know, familiar territory as far as the fake blood and, you know, falling around and getting stabbed. That was fun. The fake guts that Josh made were awesome, and it was really cool to like have them attached and then like pour the blood on top and just see it all come together, because it really did look really good. Chris and I both have really good memories, and we practiced the lines a lot before we got there, so it went really smoothly. I did want to live. I wanted to be the killer. When I first heard about the role, I was like, oh, please let me kill Chris. I think that would be so fun. Maybe next time.
My fight scene with Mark, me and him, actual brothers too, so you know, we've fought many times for movies, and it was kind of like what we do all the time, you know, as brothers. So our choreography is very much the same and in line. Am I glad I died? I guess I'm glad I died, you know, because the whole first Stab movie, you know, it's like we're actual movie. I died in that one too, but you know, I came back, but now I think it's true to the story that the real me is dead now, you know? And I'm not a real serial killer in real life, and I do not kiss men unless Josh tells me to. Slipping in the blood is actually pretty fun. I never actually fully I'd taken some falls for you before, but the slip in the blood was the first. That was actually kind of fun. And I actually did slip because that shit was really slippery on the wooden floor, so I just fell like so many times. My least favorite would definitely have to be after the fight scene where Josh loves to just cover me in blood, and it's cold blood. Like, he doesn't warm it up for you and nothing. It's just it's like he threw it in the freezer and just dumps it on you. And not only that, he also dumped a nice cup full in my mouth too, and I was like, cold and nasty. So we didn't have the voice of the killer yet, but obviously as Kenzie was in her lines, I would read them off, or my brother would read them off, and then vice versa when I was speaking to the killer on the phone. So it's kind of funny because we would use the like fake like voices, like, "What are you watching?"
Getting to kill my little brother, I guess it's a little bit of revenge from the last movie because he shoots me in the head like a dick.
And we also filmed some additional shots for the trailer that night because I didn't want everyone to know that Mark and Chris and Mackenzie are only in one scene of the movie. And I had done the same thing with Hannah before. I had filmed a couple of things of her and I, or just her by herself outside to make it look like she was in more than one outfit and in more than one scene.
For the trailer, we have a couple scenes of like me like riding on like this little like collapsible like bike machine that we have. And I think me and Kenzie are watching like, wait, what the hell's I doing? It looks like I'm like hopping around on something. I don't know. Like, oh wait, I was on the bike. And I don't think anyone else got that. And then I think Mark's coming behind me with the knife. And then me, him, and Kenzie are also just like by like the counter, like talking or whatever. And I think we're talking like, I forget what we were talking about. It was funny though. Those weren't a part of the film at all. Josh was like, hey, can you guys just do some things like that to the trailer? Like, yeah, sure.
Then I filmed the scene in my apartment with Ethan, and this was just on its own filming day all by itself. We have a little conversation about how he's kind of my only remaining trustworthy friend. And I actually, I really loved that scene. I wanted Ethan to have a little bit of a lighter side this time, not have such a heavy character to play. So he was just like a chill kind of stoner guy. It meant a lot to me because I love Ethan in real life too. So to have him kind of play the connection that we have in real life was like really, really cool for me to feel that on camera and in real life. He's just such a good guy and he's such a busy guy, so I'm always so grateful when he does my movies because I love his acting style. I love him behind the camera too. He's just so committed and he shows up and he knows his stuff and he's good at it. So I love working with Ethan. So that scene actually went pretty smoothly, but that was again during the beginning of production and shots that I had to set up myself so the autofocus was on. So looking through some of the shots, once I edited the scene together, I was like, oh good, we're blurry here, we're blurry here, we're blurry here, we're blurry here. So I called Ethan back for reshoots. And somehow we discussed wardrobe kind of in depth, and there was some miscommunication in there somewhere.
I wore a different shirt. I fucked up. And I couldn't find the shirt that I was wearing on the day of the shoot, so we had to reshoot the whole fucking thing. So, pro tip for actors, mark your wardrobe and cut it out of your regular clothes. Otherwise, you might not find it.
Surprisingly, was not a pain in the butt at all. Because we had already filmed it, we both already knew our lines perfectly. So it just kind of clicked in, and there are still some shots of me that are just my close-ups that are from the original shoot of that, but then all the wide shots and everything else you see, anything that Ethan is in had to be shot again that second day because he was in a different outfit, which it was just so funny. And we had one struggle in that scene where just walking to the fridge and taking out a soda and then coming over to the couch was just really messing with Ethan's brain for some reason, and he couldn't deliver the line and walk at the same time, and it was so funny.
Blocking's always fun because you're shooting on the fly and you're doing something that you've never actually done before. Everybody's walked from point A to point B, but for some reason, myself included, when you tell me to do it on a camera, there's something gets lost in translation there. So even for me, it was blocking's a pain in the dick.
So we laughed about it and we had a good time, but we got the scene done, like I said, very, very quickly. So there are a bunch of new faces in this movie that nobody's seen before either, because like I said, not all of the cast had time or was willing to come back. So I added in a bunch of new characters too, and most of them were involved in the Lifetime movie that's inside the movie, which I just loved. I had this kid Dalen audition, and I didn't realize how old his comments were, but I guess his comments to audition were from years ago. But I saw them, and I sworn I had gotten an email from him recently. So I wrote to him, I was like, hey, I actually think I have this great idea for a part. I looked at your profile, I saw your headshot, and I think he kind of looks a little bit like me. So I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if you played a kind of super over dramatic version of me? And so we chatted on video chat, and he thought it was hilarious and it was a fun idea, so he was game. Dalen is so much fun to work with. I loved every second of him. That little southern accent is so funny throughout the entire movie too. And I told him, just go for it. It's supposed to be a Lifetime movie, so don't feel like you're picking on me or making fun of me or anything. Allow that to happen. Allow it to be the over-the-top dramatic Josh that I've played in previous movies, if not even a higher level of dramatic than that. And he did such a great job with that. So then I also brought in my friend Emily, who I used to work with, and she's one of my besties in real life. I love her, and she had acting experience in the past, but she hadn't really done anything in a long time, so she was a little bit nervous, but she killed it, and I loved filming with her. And then there was a different girl originally scripted to play Mia's part, who plays the movie version of Hannah. There was a girl named Sunshine that was supposed to play it, and Sunshine backed out last minute, so Mia was a quick recast. I kind of just posted on my Facebook, like, hey, any of my friends want to be in a movie? I'm looking for a blonde girl. And Mia was like, I've never really acted before, but I'll try. And I love Mia. She actually worked with me and Emily together too in real life. So we kind of already had a rapport between the three of us. So I'm like, that's great. All of your scenes take place with Emily. So you'll have the comfort of having someone you know on set, which I think always helps the newer people out a little bit. So they kind of had a jam-packed weekend full of filming too. And it was a super hot weekend. So like everything that Dalen and Emily and Mia had to film together had to happen in like 1 or 2 days while Dalen was here. I think the next scene we filmed was with Dalen and Mia playing movie Josh and movie Hannah on my couch. And that was a whole wild different experience too, to have the real version of my house and the movie set version of my house, and then eventually the closed down movie set version of my house. The bones of the house stayed the same, but a lot of stuff had to change. I switched out the furniture. If you look closely, like the lamps change, the artwork on the wall changes, there's different stuff in the kitchen, all kinds of different things change, but it's supposed to be ridiculously similar too. It's just little things. I don't know if everybody's gonna catch them in the movie, but I put a lot of time and effort into switching up what the movie version of my apartment would look like compared to the real version of my apartment. So in the movie version, there's like a little blue 2-seater love seat couch instead of the big L-shaped couch that we have in the real apartment set. I wanted it to kind of mimic the opening scene. Like they're literally sitting in the exact same spots that we were sitting in on the couch while we're watching them on TV.
My first scene that I filmed was with Dalen on the couch, and we're playing, you know, our actor selves in a Lifetime movie, so that was kind of fun trying to be over dramatic with our acting, and it was a really fun scene to kind of get into for my very first time doing something like this.
And then the next scene we filmed was in the parking lot of the hotel. Well, you guys, it wasn't even supposed to be a hotel parking lot. It was just supposed to be a parking lot. But it was the parking lot of the hotel that we filmed the Stab reboot in, which made things convenient for Dalen if he needed to change because he was staying there. And that hotel in Manchester is just, they don't really give a fuck about what's happening there. So we didn't tell them we were filming there. We just kind of ran there and filmed it. It was super, super hot, and we were kind of relying on the clouds to stay over the sun a little bit, because when the clouds moved away, it got so bright that it blew the camera out and made everything so bright and glowy, everybody looked like ghosts. So we had to kind of make sure that at all times we were under the clouds.
So the very first day was very interesting. It's when I met, like, I think it was like 4 of the other actors. But we all got along really well, which was super good. We all rehearsed our lines before going to the parking lot scene, and we all made sure we like knew what we were doing before doing each scene. And yeah, the parking lot was probably 100 degrees, and there were like different cars just like staring at us, like wondering what the hell we were doing. But we got through it. It was fun. Josh was sweating a lot. We all were. So a rainstorm was coming in while we were doing the parking lot scene, and we were pretty much trying to beat like the lightning and the thunder and the rain. And it was like towards the end of that scene, it was like thundering and lightning, so it was like extra dramatic as we were driving away from that scene. But we managed to beat the rain, which was pretty shocking because we were standing there for like ever, it seemed like, because we had to keep like retaking, and everyone was so hot and annoyed at that point.
It was looking like it was gonna rain, like it was getting scary out, like it was crazy. At one point they're shooting and they're trying to kind of race the clock, and I'm kind of just sitting in the back of Corey's car and like chilling out and smoking butts and just hanging out, and you just see like the clouds coming in. I'm like, shit, like they're gonna get like soaked in this thing. Which the ironic part is the other half of that takes place took place in the pouring rain, which would have been great continuity, but what are you gonna do, you know?
I liked whenever we did it as a group, with all the characters, Erica and Mia and all of them. It was fun because we got in sync with each other. Even though we were outside in miserable heat, it was still a lot of fun. It was my favorite part.
It was like two totally different weather conditions. So there was like the super hot day, you know, and then we were battling thunderstorms on that day that were just like waiting to come. And then we'd sit inside and have pizza lunch break while we waited for the rain to pass. And then it was like, okay, back to it. But then we had like that muggy, intense, like moist weather, you know, that no one likes, where your hair instantly goes like this. So that was fun. Makeup melting off your face in the heat.
The second scene I did was in a parking lot, and it was a super hot day, which was really fun though, because we all kind of were in a group for the first time, interacting with each other and trying to figure out how to do the scene was just interesting and fun for someone who's never acted before. We did have some rain clouds coming in, but at one point, some of them blew away and the sun came out. We were all sweating and just kind of had to wait for it to cover us back up again so we could finish the scene. But it ended up being a really great time and a really fun experience.
I didn't really get too much of it on camera. You can see the dark clouds behind everyone, but you don't really get to see the lightning or anything, which worked out because it ended up continuity-wise that there was a thunderstorm that happens in the movie, which there wasn't originally a thunderstorm in the movie, but one of the scenes we filmed, it rained, so I went back and added the thunderstorm in, so it just kind of worked out that it connected to that parking lot scene where the clouds were rolling in. They rolled in at the right time. Then we filmed a scene inside my house where after we have the group meeting with the cast of the Stab reboot, we have the cast of Stabbed in the Back show up, and we kind of have a mini talk that kind of are demanding more information about the real Claire Matthews and the story behind the movie that they were in, Stabbed in the Back, because they want to know if the parts they were playing were accurate.
And it was fun filming that scene waiting outside the door, because it was like we were waiting, and then it was like you'd review it a little bit and then be like, oh, okay, everybody back out. And then it was like you were standing here, you were standing there, and it was like the lighting had to be right, and then, you know, again, battling the rain. And then also, I remember at one point we were filming and we heard a sound, and then it turned out a bird died, like ran into the window, or it didn't die, but it got injured. That was like kind of weird. We were just kind of like all distracted by the bird for a little bit there.
That scene did eventually get a couple of reshoots too, because we missed a couple of lines, and some of the lighting was wonky. When you film at a door, you need to really, really light the inside of the house too, so it doesn't look super dark inside and bright outside. So that scene took some effort, but we got there, we got it done, and that was another really fun day. So we also filmed Dalen's death scene, and during his death scene, my buddy Nick was in the costume, and I had a special effects girl come and make a slit throat prosthetic for him. And we filmed this the first day that Dalen was here. So it was important because he had a scene scheduled the next day that he had two of the same outfit. I'll let him tell you the story about that.
My death scene was not scary, not funny. It was just we had to get it on focus, on time. And I just really wanted to make it as perfect as possible, because then I had to stay stiff because of the prosthetic. Well, with the prosthetics, they made a mold of it was just basically skin, and they put a slit to it, and then they added on prosthetic glue all around to keep it on, and there was also a tube behind to get the blood flowing out of it. As for wardrobe, I got two outfits that were the same because I did my death scene the previous day and I had to refilm again, and I couldn't have it covered in blood. So I decided to go to the Guest store and get two exact matching shirts. They were $25 each. I was like, okay, this is a nice shirt, and I'll have an extra one that won't get ruined. And I bought it, and I told Joshua about it, and he reminded me that we couldn't use the Guest logo because of copyright. So that was kind of sad. I went to H&M and got a black tank top. Still look cute.
So it ended up being even funnier because we wanted to put Dalen in white so that the blood would really, really show up, and that was the whole point of him having to have two outfits. But then he showed up in a black tank top that he had two of, and I'm like, if your shirt was black, we probably wouldn't have seen the blood on it in another scene, but better safe than sorry, so I'm glad it worked out. And Dalen's death scene was actually really, really fun to film. It was super challenging. Getting the blood to come out challenged me and a special effects makeup artist, and I had to keep toweling Dalen off in between to do different takes, and there was tubing coming out of him, so we're trying to hide it in the camera angles, and it made it really, really hard to film him like sliding down walls and stuff like that. So some of that stuff got digitally corrected. But I'm always like extra grateful to the people that fly out from other states to be here, because we've had it happen in a few movies, and it's just like that level of commitment and that level of responsibility is something I really look for in the actors. And if you want to be in my movies bad enough that you're willing to pay your way to be here and fly out and stay in a hotel, you deserve a part of my movies then. You know what I mean? Like, so filming with Dalen was super fun. We made the best of it. I loved every second of filming with him. I'll definitely work with him again in the future. And I hope he had as much of a good time with me as I did with him.
It was such an honor to be involved with this. Please follow me on Instagram. It's at Dalen Castile. Yeah, just my name. And yes, thank you for everybody making this movie. And of course, the honors to Joshua Dudley for directing it, writing it, just running the whole show. He did a great job. But yeah, thank you. We love you.
So then we filmed the group meeting scene, and that scene was such a shit show. Ethan was double booked, and he was supposed to be on the set of another movie, so he couldn't come on the day that we had planned. My cousin Corey, the only mistake he made during the whole movie, completely spaced that he had filming that day. He thought it was the following Sunday because it was on a Sunday, and I messaged him like, hey, are you on your way? And he was like, oh my God, I'm like 3 hours away. So I'll be there, but it won't be until later. So I'm like, oh crap, how are we gonna do this? So I have Ashley and Nicole sitting in my house. I'm like, okay, we're gonna just film your side of it, and then I'll cut the other ones in after. I'll align the other three of us to be on the other side of the room, and we'll just kind of cut back and forth, which also didn't go according to plan.
I, being an idiot, double booked myself for that weekend. And so the group talk scene, I wasn't in it. I wasn't there filming that day. Through movie magic and editing and stage direction and blocking and placement, Josh, being the genius that he was, managed to work it so that I shot all of my stuff separate from everybody else.
The group chat scene, that was interesting. You know, trying to really pretend that there's a bunch of other people here when there's nobody.
So we filmed all of Ashley and Nicole's stuff, and I plotted out where everyone was going to be sitting or standing so that they knew where to look when they were talking to different people that weren't here. So like I put Corey in front of the bathroom door, I put me closer to the office door, and I put Ethan over in the corner under the lamp by the TV so that they had a focal point to stare at while they were talking if they weren't talking to each other. And then after they left, I was already ready to film, so I sat down and I filmed just my side of it of all my lines, and I figured, hey, at some point I'll go back in and I'll film wider shots that show like me and Ethan together so you can see that we were there together. I couldn't align a day for Ethan and Corey to show up at the same time either, so there was no way to get a group shot of all three of us. So I ended up filming Corey separately, me separately, and Ethan separately, and then Ashley and Nicole were the first ones that filmed separately. And then I had to cut it all together, and man, was it hard. Like, it's semi-convincing in the movie, and maybe the audience doesn't notice it as much as I do from the frustration of trying to edit it together, but having everyone get up and leave and walk out the door, and what a challenge that scene was to film. So we also filmed a scene in the production studio parking lot that was actually filmed at a public library, the backside of a public library, because I couldn't find a building that looked like a production studio. And then I remembered this library. I have friends that are librarians there, so they don't mind if I go and film there, but I didn't really have permission. We just kind of showed up and filmed there. And the timing of that day was a little bit off. The first thing we filmed was Rachel and Ashley in the car, their side of the car conversation where they're on the phone with me, and Erica in my car.
There's this inside joke that I can't make it through a single movie without driving in my car. And this, of course, is no different. Although this time it wasn't my car, and typically when I'm driving, I am physically driving, and the shot is of me physically driving. This time is very stationary, not in my own car, and Josh actually took a flashlight and moved it around so it looked like streetlights were moving by us, which was genius. So this was a little different. I would love to say that it was easier to deliver lines when you're not physically driving, but I don't know that it was. I think it was more challenging because it was more foreign. It's not something you would typically do, is, you know, have a car conversation when you're not actually moving. So that was interesting. It also was in a car that was not my own, so it was not as comfortable to me because it wasn't as familiar. Yeah, we had to ADR every single one of those lines because you film from outside of the car, of course, and you can't hear any of it.
And then we went to the library. Well, it turns out we should have filmed the library part first, the production studio, not really the library. It just was filmed at a library. Because the library had exterior lighting on the building that we had no clue that it was on an automatic timer, and it turned off when we were like 3/4 of the way done filming the scene, maybe even more than 3/4 of the way, like 9/10 of the way done filming the scene, and the lights turned off.
So we couldn't just turn on the lights again, and we had to start the scene completely over because the lighting changed so drastically. I did appreciate that Erica made it through the entire movie in fuzzy slippers. There was no time where she had actual shoes on. And we were laughing about that. Like the night that we were filming outside and the mosquitoes were eating us alive, we're like, you're still in fuzzy slippers. And she's like, I know.
I'm actually wearing them right now. But I was wearing these like fuzzy slippers the entire movie, getting chased by the ghost.
That was probably the lowest point in filming. Just because it was so hot. We were outside in the dark. It was humid. There were a ton of bugs. And so we really were just trying to keep our composure and deal with that and act like it wasn't happening. I would love to say that we did it gracefully. I'm not sure that we did, though. And this was a moving scene, so the entire group had to walk while delivering lines, which is always challenging, but especially for us.
In reality, didn't actually work out that bad because it was like the first time we had filmed it was just like a really intense dress rehearsal with cameras on. And I did think about trying to marry the footage together so that half of the scene had that lighting but it just didn't work out. So we refilmed the whole scene and it came out as good as it could have. The second to last day of filming on the movie was for the finale, and the finale in this movie is crazy, and it was a lot of pages in the script, and I knew it was going to be a very, very long day. And again, knowing how limited everybody's availability was, I had taken a day off from work because I work on weekends when everyone else doesn't. So I had taken a day off from work to film the ending, and it's supposed to be at night. So I blacked out my entire house and dressed it as the movie set again, but this time the shut down version of the movie set. So there was kind of like tarps covering everything and like paint cans and stuff laying around like they were working on the sets. And we actually started filming at noon so that we would have time and we wouldn't be filming until like 2 o'clock in the morning, because I am a vampire basically, so I don't mind staying up all night and filming, but I can't subject everyone else that has normal lives and working schedules who wake up at 6, 7, 8 in the morning. I can't subject them to filming till 3 or 4 in the morning, or at least I try not to whenever I can. But I knew it was going to be a very long day, and I kept telling people it was going to be a long day, and I don't think they believed me that it was going to be such a long day, but it was such a long day. And it was one of those days, too, that it was just, again, ridiculously stupid fucking hot. The main part of my house doesn't have AC units in it. Like, I don't have central AC, and there's no windows that open out here, so there's no AC in the main part of the house. So like my office and my bedroom have ACs, and we had those on, and fans kind of pointed out blowing the AC toward us, and then the ceiling fans were on, which again, it fucked with the audio. There's a lot of bad audio in the ending of the movie, but I can't have people working for free pass out on me. They're all my friends. I care about all of them, and they've all volunteered to help me on this project, to have fun with me. I can't have them subjected to 1 billion degrees and passing out, so I tried to keep it as cool as I could, but that involved us having to leave the fans and the ACs on quite a bit. We did turn off the fans a bunch of times because they were blowing the tarps around, but the ACs in the bedroom kind of stayed on, and everyone would kind of run into the bedroom and the office between takes to cool off and like stand in front of the AC.
Yeah, that was also kind of hot and sweaty that day too. We were all in between takes, all huddled in 2 back rooms, because those were the rooms with ACs running in them, and we would just take turns standing over the AC with our shirts kind of open, trying to cool off.
And it was so hot. I felt so bad for Henry being a fucking trooper in that fucking costume. The fans were just kind of like pushing stale hot air around, and it was like smelling the inside of a matchbox that's been in somebody's jockstrap.
Henry had it the worst because he had to be in the costume.
The last day shooting was unbearably hot. Like, it was over 100 degrees inside the set, and everybody's just dying of sweat. Now, I'm also in the Ghostface suit, so like, Josh was great. Like, he was trying to keep me out of it as much as he possibly could till it absolutely needed to. But I am a sweater by nature, and I was freaking drenched. And it was great because everybody did come together. We actually ended up having a lot of fun in the scene, as nasty as it was in the set. But it was it was pretty gross. But like, you know, everybody kind of came together. Everybody was, you know, helping each other run lines in between the scenes and the, you know, the shots. And you know, we're moving furniture around to kind of get it all going. And it was a hard day, but it was a really fun day.
And I would say I had it the second worst that day because I didn't get to stop when everyone else got to stop. I had to keep setting stuff up and keep filming and doing everyone's blood effects and my blood effects and trying to remember my lines when I had to be on camera too. But that day something magical happened too. I talk about how I love doing these because it's a big collaborative process where everybody just comes together to do it for the love of doing it. And every single actor that is in the ending scene filmed a part of that ending scene. Oh, I got goosebumps. Like, that is just, it's so touching to me that they were willing to help out like that, because the day would have been so much longer if they hadn't, because I would have had to set up so many shots and make sure that they were framed right. I would have had to watch the playback to make sure it was all going right. So to have them all be like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. And Erica filmed a good portion of the scenes. Rachel filmed, Ashley filmed, Henry filmed, Ethan filmed. Everybody filmed some of the scene that day to help me out. Every time they help me out like that, like I get a little choked up. Like I could feel it in the back of my throat right now and in my eyes. Like it just means so much to me. It was a really touching moment. So to all of you that are in that ending scene, when you guys helped me, you got me right here. Thank you guys so much. I love you all so much. That was one of the coolest things of filming this movie to me, was how much everybody was willing and able to help.
So I offered to help with any of the, the holding the camera, shooting some of the scenes, because I do have a little bit of like photography experience. I have my own YouTube channel, Glamour Ghoul Paranormal. So I was pretty comfortable with like holding the camera, so I did shoot some of the scenes.
Every single one of us took turns filming. We didn't have another person that wasn't in the scene here to film. We passed the camera around to just make it work. And at the end of the night, I do remember Josh laying on the floor, completely covered in blood. We were all exhausted at that point. I don't think Josh wanted to get up. I think he was just ready to go to sleep on the floor, covered in blood.
That ending scene was so much fun to film, though. I loved the lighting in it. I really wanted to get back to like the look of Stab 6 because we were on a movie set. So I thought it would be fun to have exposed lighting everywhere that you could see and all these kind of crazy bright colors. And I had written a script for a different thing that we were working on that involved us home aloneing a house. And I thought that would be a really fun thing to add into the Stab script. So we had that fun montage of us setting up the house where we're setting all these traps and laying out weapons so we have ways and means to defend ourselves. And another collaborative effort between everyone, like doing stuff like that and putting it all out. And
I mean, there was a lot of dialogue that day too, in between the action. Plus there was so much in between of us having to set up stuff. Because when we first got here, we had to have completely broken down set, nothing happening. And then we had to film like a montage of us setting it up. And we had to really set it up for real. So the montage was not as much acting as us actually setting up the apartment to shoot in.
What I really enjoyed about this too was it was the first time that I got to take part in sort of like a Home Alone style montage. It was the first time that the entire cast was sort of working together, the entire remaining cast was working together to basically set up to take down the killer. And so it was a lot of fun to do that and, take part in hiding weapons and hanging paint cans and all of that. So it was really cool to booby trap the house.
that one was really fun to film because the audio didn't matter, so we were all kind of joking around, like, put the knife here, look at the hook, like, oh my goodness, hold that gun up, like, ah, trying to set up the paint buckets and get the ropes to go over the beams that are holding up my house. That shit was hilarious. And once we got them up there, we realized the way that they were hung up, the paint cans wouldn't actually swing the way we were gonna need them to swing. They wouldn't have worked. The way I tug on them and the way the paint cans come, no, because they were sitting up on a beam, and if I tugged on them, they just would have went up in the air and fell right to the ground. So it made no sense. There had to be a second or third step to that process that wasn't laid out in there. Same thing with the gun that goes off and shoots Ethan. There should have been another thing holding the rope on the side to counteract when he opens the door for it to pull the trigger, because otherwise when he pulled it, it would have just pulled the whole gun forward. Whatever, it's a movie. I did what was easiest and what we had to do, because there's no other way to set it up any different in here. Henry had these giant paragraphs of dialogue. Like, don't let him fool you by telling you how hard he studied. He must have studied so hard. Some of his paragraphs were full pages in the script that were just his lines on one page that took up the whole page. So that was super impressive, considering Henry also doesn't really have any in front of camera experience. He's never really been an actor before. So to have him deliver all those lines, it was a lot. I'm glad I didn't have to deliver that giant paragraph or those 5 giant paragraphs of lines, but he did such a good job.
I was really actually surprised with Henry. He delivered a lot of lines, like so many lines. It was like 3 paragraphs long, and I was really surprised and shocked with that. I was like, wow, that's really good.
Here's the full truth of this one. This is my first foray into actually acting on scene with a script. And Josh was like, when he originally asked if I wanted to have the part, I was like, hell yeah, like it's freaking Ghostface, dude. Like I'll play a killer in a heartbeat. And so he gives me the dialogue, and I throw him a video thing. This is something Josh doesn't even know, but I give him the longest monologue, and I audition it with my phone at work. Everybody else was gone, so I just started going. What he doesn't know is I was reading it off the screen the whole fucking time. And it was like, I'm going back and forth, like I'm trying to do it like a commercial where you read a teleprompter, like the whole 9. And he's like, wow, you did it a little too fast, and maybe you need a little bit more like drama to it, but otherwise, holy shit, I didn't think you knew the line. And now I'm like, fuck, I have to learn all of this shit before we shoot it. And so I spent so many days just like in my car in parking lots just redoing it. I mean, literally like a week worth of practice of me getting it, and then it finally snapped. And then the one thing that I didn't realize, because hi, first time actor, was that yeah, I should probably run the lines with somebody. So the day that we're shooting, I know my monologues, I know all these scenes, but I don't have timing down, and nobody wants to hear me do, you know, a 60-line monologue and then screw up somebody else's lines. So I'm trying as hard as I can to do it, but I just never had that. I never had that opportunity. And again, 200 degrees in this place, so it was like we were just wanted to get through it. So I remember the one thing is that as many times as I practiced it, the one thing that I apparently did not know how to say was poignant. And I said poignant like 3 times, and everybody's like, what is poignant? No, it's poignant, dude. And that was like in the middle of the big ass monologue. So I'm like, fuck, like I gotta do it again. And at the same time, I'm trying to like take the suit off and like, you know, like reveal who I am, which is dad bod underneath that robe. So it wasn't like anything. It was like, woo, you know. But I'm having trouble like remembering the lines while I'm pulling off the suit. And it was just, we did probably like 5 or 6 takes of it, and I felt so bad because it was just so nasty in here that it was almost to the point where I think it actually drove everybody to the kill scene, that when they got their chance to like get their hands on me, everybody was gonna take full advantage of that.
I had to throw myself on the floor probably a good 8 times. And I remember one of those times my back cracked, and I just was like in my head like, oh no. Like, oh, I think I might have hurt myself. There's no pad or anything. We're not stunt people. I'm a software engineer. I don't know how to throw myself on the floor, but yeah, I hit the floor quite a few times. My back did hurt after that, but not to the point where I was like afraid, where I wasn't going to be able to move my neck the next day because I'm also old. And then that was just the first time I had to throw myself to the floor. And then there was the crowbar, which I then had to throw myself to the floor again, like another 8 times for that take. And Ethan, oh my God, remember when he got shot from the shotgun and he goes down the door frame, he pinched his balls and he acted through it. Like he just acted through it. And then the second Joshua's cut, he just goes, just falls over sideways, he pinched his nut. Poor Ethan. And he was in such a bad mood for the rest of the day because of that.
Sometimes as a man, I can't speak as a woman, obviously, because I'm not one. Sometimes, though, when you're a dude and you take a clip to one of the boys, it's worse than a full-on shot. And you know what I'm talking about, guys. I know you know. But that clip to the nuts, man, that floored me for pretty much the rest of the night. Thank God I had to sit for the majority of that filming day. Man, that nut clip just gets you.
It was important to me that this movie didn't take itself too seriously throughout it. Like, some of the scenes are presented pretty serious, and then a lot of them are presented pretty comically. And the ending to me is just super comical, and it was meant to be that way. There's a lot of different things in it that really play up the comedy of the ending. We had this running joke about Henry being Marv from Home Alone on set. Like, when the paint can comes down, he gets hit in the head, he makes that classic Marv face.
So everybody's like, yeah, you kind of give off like Mickey vibes from like Scream 2. And I'm like, all right, like, you know, Timothy Olyphant, all right. And by the end of it, it was like, you're like Marv from Home Alone. Like, I was like, there goes the sex appeal. It's right down the drain now. I'm going after Josh in the scene first, and they pull this string and these paint cans hit the back of my head and like knock me out. And so when they hit, they're just, you know, thankfully they were just empty paint cans, but the noise they made was like dong. Like it was so comical. Like it was such a comical sound that like when we would rewatch them, I would just play it on the loop because it sounds like something out of a cartoon, but that was the natural sound that the paint cans made when they bounced off my head.
And our little fight scene after I hit him in the head with the paint cans, where he pushes me to the floor and then we have these little punches back and forth, that I cannot tell you the amount of bruises I was covered in. Even filming the opening scene with Mark, I was covered in bruises because, again, we don't have stunt performers, but I'm willing to just go for it. I don't care. I want it to look good on screen, and for you guys to see it, I want it to look realistic. So like in that opening scene, Mark is really throwing me over the counter, and I'm really going that far and crashing into the stove and landing on the floor, and I don't mind. Like I said, I can take it, a couple of bruises, whatever, they'll go away. But something about that end scene with Henry, I was just covered in bruises the next day, like literally head to toe, a walking bruise. Again, though, totally worth it because I love that little sequence. The line where he stabs me in the back, I'm like, that wound was just healing. Even writing that, I was cracking up laughing. So saying it on set was a little bit hard for me because I found it to be so freaking funny.
Yeah, I get dinged with a crowbar. Ashley nails me with a crowbar.
The crowbar one actually went pretty smoothly. There was one time, Henry, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I did such a good job with my reaction. Henry really thought that he hit me. And I was like, no, you're good. We blew the take because I was like, no, you're okay. He's, oh my God, did I get you? No. Acting.
Erica, she chokes me out. Erica, she had to, God bless her, because she had to kind of choke me out with her arm. And as I mentioned, huge sweater. And when she grabbed my neck the first time, it was like the same consistency of like a jellyfish because it was so friggin' wet. And she's like, oh, you're sweating so much. And I'm like, I'm sorry. The coup de grace was the chainsaw scene with Rachel. And I pictured it in my head how it was going to be, but it turned out like completely different. But for the best. Like, it's so ridiculous. That part is so friggin' funny and gross at the same time because of all the blood and everything that's everywhere in the scene. But Rachel, she's got the chainsaw, and she's like, when she started doing it, I picked up on exactly how we were gonna do it because she's like, ah, ah. She's like, she can't believe that she's chainsawing me. So she's like, ah, and then looking at the saw, and then looking at me, and then looking at the saw. And so when we do the reverse shot on that, I'm like, ah, ah.
One of the funniest things we filmed in so long. That sequence just gets me every time. And the face he makes, we kept joking that he looked like Marv in Home Alone 2 when he gets electrocuted and eventually you see his skeleton. But you have like that same kind of screaming face, and we were cracking up laughing about that. I feel like Henry must not feel so great that we were referencing him as Marv because, you know, everyone was talking about how he was giving off different vibes of different killers from other movies, like Billy from the first movie, Mickey from Scream 2, and so it was funny that all of a sudden it turned into us being like, oh, you're Marv from Home Alone. But that's what I wanted for the ending, because the ending, like, the killer's motive is just so stupid. And I intentionally did that too. I wanted it to be a motive that was just like, really? Like, you were upset about the Stab movies? That's what your problem is? And it really gave me and Rachel the opportunity to present to him a lot of the arguments that we're constantly making to the fans who comment about, like, how Stab 5 doesn't have any time travel and how bad the audio is and stuff like that, you know? So how low budget the movies are. So it was really a fun chance for us to direct it at an audience that was just one person who was a fan, but it was really directed at all the people who have made comments and stuff like that before. And then the reveal of us not knowing who he is was even funnier to me, because the whole movie, like, we're all like, who is it? It's probably one of us. It's one of the cast members. That's the most likely story, you know? And then it's just like, here's someone that wasn't even in the rest of the movie, but he was. He was just the Uber driver twice, you know? So that was super, super funny to me. And I hope it plays as funny as it was, because even the characters of Josh and Rachel, like, don't even really take him seriously. You'll notice when he's giving his speech, we just kind of stand there and stare at him. Like, we're not running or trying to get away. We're kind of just like, this is what's happening right now? You were killing people because you were mad about our YouTube movies? Like, okay. I think Rachel really shines in the ending scene too. Like, her acting in that, I need to write Rachel more comedy. I find her to be a great comedic actress. Her comedic timing is spot on to me, and she is just so fucking funny.
I got to use a chainsaw in this movie, which was great, and I really enjoyed working and feeding off of Henry's energy. I don't know. I can't remember the point where in my head I was like, this is something that I'm going to do. I made the conscious decision to look at the chainsaw and scream, and then look at Henry, and Henry screamed back at me, and then I looked, you know, we kept looking down and back, and it was so funny when we were filming it that I hope it translates in the movie for you, because we had to cut a few times because we just were laughing hysterically. We got started and couldn't stop. I had used a chainsaw before, but never like this, and I think you know, one of the lessons we learned from the chainsaw in Theta is, in order to make it look more realistic, is to kind of handle the blood on set and remove as many special effects as you can to make it look more realistic. And there was a lot of blood. You know, in Stab 6, we really went all out at the end, and I smeared blood all over myself. This was far worse than that. But more fun. The blood was cold, which was nice because it was so hot. But literally, when I was doing that take, everybody else that wasn't in the scene had cups of blood, and they were just taking handfuls and just splattering them at me. And so what you're seeing with the blood hitting me, of course, is not really from the chainsaw, but from, you know, Ashley and Erica just throwing blood at me. And I just remember this was the first time I was filming the movie in my contacts, and I'm like, oh my god, if it gets stuck under my contact, I'm gonna have an issue. We're not gonna be able to film. And to clarify, I'm not a priss about blood. Fully willing to go the extra mile, get it all over me. I just was like, we've been here so long already. If I can't film because I can't see, like, it's gonna shut this down. And I just remember worrying about that, but it worked out, and I was able to get fully drenched in blood.
I can't wait to see the thing fully edited. Like, I can't wait to see it. But it was so crazy, and it was almost like we were so fried by the end of that scene that, like, you know, just with throughout the whole course of the day, that it was like we were all going like a little bit insane. Like, we had surpassed giggles and gone right to insane. So, like, when this is happening, it was literally like just like, yeah, like, we just wanted to, like, I don't know, like, it was otherworldly the way it came out. But, like, at the end of it, everybody felt so, like, happy with it. I don't know, it was a good feeling at the end, but it's so campy but so freaking good.
Watching Josh get brains flicked on him too, made out of jello, was probably the grossest thing I've ever partaken in, but it was awesome, and I hope that it looks as great on film as it did in person.
The amount of blood in the ending scene and the amount of blood that ends up on me in this movie is more blood than I think we've ever had in any movie. Like, I've tried to be a little bit gory. I try not to push it too far because we're on YouTube. You know, I don't want us to get our movies taken down or anything like that. But that end scene when Rachel is chainsawing Henry, the other actors that weren't on camera had cups of blood, and they were flicking blood at Rachel to get the splatter. We never filmed Henry's side of him getting blood flicked on him, so I did it after to him. But Ashley, Ethan, and Erica were all behind the camera flicking blood. But then something about when it came to my shot of me on the floor underneath the chainsaw, they all just decided that there should be more blood than what was hitting Rachel for some reason. And maybe they just didn't want to keep getting their hands covered in the fake blood. So I'm just getting doused in fake blood, and like, I don't mind, whatever. Like, I know I'm gonna have to clean my entire house after too and get all the blood off of everything, but I'm just like, okay. But I feel like that was kind of the actor's revenge in this one. But it was nice because it was such a hot day. We actually put the blood in the fridge so that it would be cold when it hit us, and it was very, very refreshing to be hit with that blood. The only part that wasn't refreshing is when Ethan shoots Henry in the head and his brain matter explodes all over my face. That was like the only part that kind of actually like made me gag a little bit, because the brains were made out of Jello and they were in a cup with a bunch of fake blood in it, and Ethan was actually the one that threw it, because something in my brain just told me that Ethan should be the one to throw it. Like, he just knows what it should look like, and he did it so perfect. It got in my mouth, like actually got in my mouth. It was scripted to get in my mouth, but I didn't think it was gonna actually get in my mouth, but it did. And if you watch in the movie, you literally see me roll over and go and spit it out. It was so much blood and Jello. But it did kind of taste like grape blood because of the Jello, but I was just drenched. So I couldn't really move, and that's when it came into play again of having more people film different sequences that were happening there, because I couldn't really let all the blood and brains fall off of me until we were pretty much done seeing me on the floor. But that was really, really intense. I think there's got to be like half a gallon of blood on me in that scene. People getting shot in the movie was interesting too, because it's like, oh, how do we react to this? And how do I play this? And not too many of them asked a lot of questions. Like, this is why I love my actors. They just go for it for the most part. Like 96% of the time, they just dive right in and try it, which is like, that's all I could ever ask for, you know? Ashley threw herself to the floor more than once, which I'm sure gave her more than a few bruises. Rachel, when she gets shot in the head and goes fucking sailing through the air onto the couch, I did not see that coming at all. Like, I think my jaw dropped. Just the way she moved, I was like, oh my God, like, you didn't have to go that hard, but she fucking killed it. Like, I was so impressed with Rachel and getting shot like that.
It was the first time that I was going to have to be, shot, which was interesting. I remember being so nervous about, how am I realistically gonna fall if I get shot? I don't want to look stupid. I've never done this before. And I just kind of went for it. And so I hope you enjoy that.
And fucking nailed it.
I just remember looking at the couch and being like, here we go.
Here comes Rachel. And poor Erica. I tried to go over the stunt with her of her leaping up onto the counter and getting shot. And in reality, I should have just staged it differently and had her hit the floor. Like I said, they're not stunt performers. Some of them aren't even actors to begin with. So her trying to get up onto that counter, she's a little too short, so that part was kind of funny, her just trying to get up there. Rolling off of it was not a direction her brain understood. She's kind of sliding down to the floor. I'm like, sweetie, I'm gonna put padding on the other side, so you're just gonna roll. I didn't end up putting the padding there, so maybe that's kind of what scared her, is just my brain didn't process, oh, set up the padding real quick. So there was no attempt to roll. She just kind of kept hopping off. I'm like, you just got shot, honey. It should be the momentum of the bullet hitting you and making you roll off the counter, And I think we did 9 or 10 takes before I just said, fuck it. I'm like, screw it. We'll cut back and we'll show the smoking gun, and then we'll show you hitting the floor. It would just be in little pieces. And I felt bad because every time she did slide off that counter, she bruised up her hip real bad, or her thigh. And then she sent me a picture of it, and I had the exact same matching bruise from whatever I did on the floor with Henry. So we had twin bruises for a little while, so we're sending pictures back and forth of all of our bruises. That was a really funny moment for me.
Poor Erica, when she had to throw herself over Josh's counter, she's not tall enough to just do it and roll with it. So by the end of it, her thighs were all bruised up. The corners just kept digging into her, and she had to do that damn roll, 12 times? It just couldn't get over the counter. But it was no, you have to get over it and then just stay down. And she wasn't tall enough to do a stunt like that. I just was like, oh, thank God it's not me, because I'm even shorter than her.
So the ending scene was There was so much to that. It was crazy. It was a really long day. It was like, I don't know, 12 hours. It was all day, all night, pretty much. I ended up getting home at like freaking 2 a.m., covered in blood too. So much blood on set. I had to dive over a counter. I ended up like hurting my leg. I had like a gigantic bruise like on my butt, on my leg, because I was also thrown against the wall too.
So Ethan being the second killer was actually not in the original version of the script, and it was kind of a surprise for everyone. So about 2 or 3 days before we filmed the ending scene, I sent everyone another 1.5 pages of script that revealed Ethan to be the second killer. The whole time Ethan was kind of set up throughout the script as like the red herring to be the killer. So I wanted people to think it was him and then have it not turn out to be him. But then I felt like once he got shot in the chest, it would be kind of okay for him to actually be the killer. Like there's a reason he had that bulletproof vest on, because he knew someone was going to take a shot at him for some reason. So if the bulletproof vest doesn't give it away, which for some of you I'm sure it did, I think that was a cool twist that we added in last minute, and the cast was really shocked. And up until that point, everyone that was in that scene was supposed to survive that scene. So Ashley, Rachel, Erica, and I were all actually supposed to survive the movie, and Ethan was supposed to survive as an innocent victim. And I just wanted an extra twist right at the end because I know how much you guys love that shit. So I wrote that in, and Ethan was really gung-ho about playing it. Everyone, surprisingly, was totally okay with their characters dying. So that was really cool to add that in and kind of surprise everyone, have that little bonus thing. And Ethan just nailed it.
Playing the killer was a metric fuck ton of fun. Being able to jump in there and really just kill everyone in a very efficient and yet almost methodical manner with the precision of a brain surgeon.
Confession. You sent us a clip after the day of filming, and it was the clip of Ethan doing the shooting. He looked so fucking good. The way that he just was like, boom, and then it's like his arms stayed like so perfectly straight, and all of his movements were just like so perfect. I watched that damn clip like 15 times. I was like, holy shit, he did such a good job with just that one little scene, like popping us off. It was well done, Ethan, well done.
The rest of Nicole's scenes after the group meeting scene were all filmed in one day as well. So the first thing that we filmed was with Nicole and Corey and Hannah's daughter Ariana. Originally in the script, Nicole's daughter Sierra was supposed to be in it as well. And Sierra, being a classic teenage girl, decided that she no longer wanted to be in the movie. She didn't want to see herself on camera. So there was this whole awesome scene that ended up getting cut out that was between Sierra and Ariana before the phone call that Nikki gets in her like attack scene. And they were in a bedroom and they kind of prank phone call Nikki trying to do the Ghostface voice and stuff like that. And we just had to cut it and kind of pretend that Sierra's there but isn't there. So that was a pain in the ass, but I'm not going to fight with a 14-year-old girl about being in a movie. You know, like I love Sierra in real life. Nicole's kids are such sweethearts. And I love that they wanted to be involved even if they didn't follow through, you know? So it was sad that she wasn't in it because I thought it would be really, really fun for her and us. And the whole time we were filming, she was there, like in the background and stuff. So I think she felt bad that she wasn't in the movie and she kind of regretted her decision of not doing it. But who knows, maybe we'll get her in a future production. But that was a sad scene for me to cut because it was a really cute little bonding scene between these teenage girls. But the first scene that we shot at Nicole's house was Nicole, Ariana, and Corey. And Corey's kind of dropping off Ariana because now Nicole is Ariana's caretaker now that Hannah has died. So we filmed the whole scene. The day went on, we left because we took a big dinner break that day and then came back to Nicole's house and realized that we never filmed the first line of the scene where Nicole is on the phone talking to a friend, talking about how they're bringing Hannah's daughter to live with her. So it was never stated in the movie, again, aside from that Ariana is Hannah's daughter. They talk about how sad Ariana is about her mom, but you don't know that her mom is Hannah. So after we took our dinner break, we came back and we filmed Nicole's phone call, which was another phone call that I wanted to get in one take. It's another scene that I wish I could refilm. I think we only did 3 or 4 takes of it just because of little flubs that happened in between. So there was nothing to cut to. So I was trying to keep it in that one take just on Nikki the whole time. The camera decided that every time Nicole moved, it was going to adjust the lighting. I'm trying to see if it will do it now. See how the lighting like changes when you shift around? Because the camera's trying to auto do the lighting. Couldn't figure out how to change that setting. I didn't notice it while I'm filming. So the final take that we got of the phone call that I loved, and I thought the performance by Nikki in it was great, the lighting's a little wonky in it. So that's another one of the shots that I wish I could refilm. Nikki notoriously punched Chris in the last movie and gave him a split bloody lip because, like I said, Nikki a bad bitch. You do not want to mess with her. She can hurt you. No matter how big of a person you are, Nikki's punch will send you reeling in pain. And Nicole loves fight scenes. She loves doing stunts and stuff like that. So she goes all out and she gets really excited about them. And poor Henry. Henry took full force punches from Nicole to his face in this one, and Nicole always feels bad after, and I have to like contain myself from laughing because I feel bad for the actor that's getting punched because I know how strong Nikki is, but at the same time you're like, this girl just wants to hit people, I swear.
We shoot at Nikki's place, and I had seen the last Stab movie, and she's a badass in it. Like, you can just tell that this chick could like beat the shit out of you in real life. So low key, when I meet her, she's like 5'2". Like, I was like, she is way tiny, but she's like a rabid chihuahua. Like, this girl will beat my ass if I don't like watch out for it. So we're choreographing, we're getting ready to shoot it. The first time she did it, I was like, okay, it's no big deal. But she kind of like grazed the mask. I'm like, okay, she's going for like realism. Without thinking about it, we go through the first one, and I'm like, yeah, she's getting really close to the mask. Like, usually in a fight scene, you know, someone's here, and, you know, the head's there, and then you just kind of time the punch. And no, she wasn't doing that. She was really hitting the fucking mask. And so there's one part where we did it, and I kind of staggered a little too, like, you know, cartoony. So I was like, all right, let's do it again. And so the next scene, she cold cocks me so hard that the ghost mask, the face just goes, and I'm like, oh! And then she goes with like a 1-2 punch, and the next one hits me in the other side of the face, and I'm like, oh! And I really like stumbled back. And for one, it was really great for like the choreography. I guess it was a learning experience because I was like, okay, so that's how you actually fall when you really get fucking punched. But at the second time, I'm like, fuck my jaw. She fucking laid me out like twice. It was like Muhammad fucking Ali, like so bad. And so immediately following those punches, we fall to the ground, and then at some point I end up choking her. And those 2 punches really made it easy to make that feel like I wanted to. It was, I got really method off of a couple of ass kickings. And so then, you know, after we wrap, I go to get something to eat, and it was like TMJ times 10. Like, I'm like, I couldn't even open my mouth to eat a sandwich. It was great. You did good, Nikki. You did good.
We got through it. Henry survived it, no matter how many little bruises he may have had after, but it was a lot. It was intense, but it came out really, really good. And I loved the sequence of Ariana coming out and helping too, which was originally scripted to be Ariana and Sierra again come out and help her mom fight the killer. Because it is a little bit awkward when they're leaving that Nicole's just like yelling to her daughter, like, come on, we're going to the hospital. Like, make sure you have enough time to run by this killer before he regains consciousness, you know? It was too late into the movie to change the script and write Sierra completely out of it. So that's how it worked. So hopefully she survived that. The night before we had filmed that scene, I decided that everybody in the movie was now going to die, and I wrote in an additional ending where Ethan became the second killer of the movie. Nobody knew about it. It was still kind of a surprise. I didn't tell anyone, and I didn't tell Nikki she was gonna die now until the night that we went to film. So we switched to go out into the car to film her little car scene, which we filmed the same way. It was stationary, and I just bounced the camera around to make it look like she was moving. Henry had the lights that time, and he was whooshing them around to make them look like the street lamps. Then I had Henry hold 2 of those lights and come running at the car with Nicole looking over and like about to scream, so it looks like a car's driving right at her. And then we filmed Ghostface in the car slamming into her. So you never really see the full connection of her getting hit. You never actually see her die either, but that was the point, was to kill her character off. Aside from the death scene with Mia and Emily, where the Uber driver kind of mysteriously disappears, you hear him grunt and then the killer appears, the only other giveaway that Henry, the Uber driver, is the killer, which his name is not Henry in the script. He doesn't have a name. The only other hint is if you look, the car that Ghostface is driving when he crashes into Nicole is the same car as the Uber driver and has the same blue seat covers and everything. So maybe you figured it out just when you saw that shot. I don't know. So filming the scenes at Nicole's house was actually the final day of production, and that's when we wrapped filming, and there's footage of us behind the scenes like that's a wrap on Stab 2, but it wasn't because I wrote in those additional scenes and we filmed 2 more scenes after that. So after production wrapped, I edited the whole movie together, and because of scenes that had gotten cut or scenes that played out a little bit quicker than I thought they would, the movie was kind of short. It was only like an hour and 10 minutes. So I was like, oh shit. I don't want to put out another hour and 10 minute movie. Like if you guys are going to sit there and watch a YouTube movie, I want to make it a full movie for you, at least an hour and a half, or try to be an hour and a half, somewhere close to. So I started thinking about what I could do to fix it. And my first solution was to have Corey come back for his like 15th reshoot of the movie. Thank you, cousin Corey. I love you so much. Another one who's just so committed all the time, shows up, knows your shit. Yeah, I'm so impressed with Corey. Like, he kills it. So he came back and we filmed this whole sequence in the driveway that actually leads into the scene before his death scene, where he's outside kind of doing his perimeter sweep that he talks about later in the scene. We do the classic cat jump scare, except for it's not really a jump. The cat kind of sits there and meows because I didn't have a real cat, but I had this leftover cat puppet from the movie Theta that we did, and that scene that the cat puppet was supposed to be in had never gotten filmed, so I've had this cat puppet sitting up in my loft for years. So I finally put it to good use in that scene. I actually really liked that scene that we added in, and we got some really cool shots in it too.
I came back and did like a little spook look around, perimeter sweep, looking for the killer, just making sure everything was safe. Spent quite some time out in the driveway, actually, walking back and forth, making sure the shots were good. Wish we had a trained cat, but unfortunately we had a little puppet. So you'll see me give the little puppet a pet.
And then I wrote to Emily and Mia, and I was like, hey, I realized that you guys are now the only ones that don't die in the movie. You're the only 2 characters, aside from Ethan, who survive. So I feel like you might need a death scene.
There was definitely not enough fucking blood in this thing, so Josh ended up saying, hey, I want to add a scene into this. It's gonna need Ghostface. I'm like, cool, that's in. And it was kind of a continuation of the scene where I played the Uber driver. So we ended up shooting, again, pouring fucking rain, and we got into the driving, and we have to pull over to a dirt road. I'm driving Josh's car, so he's like, don't you fucking crash my car. I'm like, no, I'm good. But it was like actually like trying to drive for Uber, so I'm kind of like trying to be professional and driving shit, and I still had to say the lines. And so we get there, we get to the point, and you know, the Uber driver mysteriously vanishes.
Sad that I didn't get to die, especially watching some of like the footage of other people dying. I was kind of like, oh, that was really cool. Oh, I kind of wish I got to die. And then I was thrilled when Josh messaged me and was like, hey, movie's running a little short. Would you mind maybe having a death scene if I wrote one in for you and Mia? So obviously I was like, yes, please. I was like, kill me any way you want. I don't care. I'd love to die. That'd be great. So it was also really cool working with Mia. We used to work together. It was really nice getting to see her. I think this was her first movie too. So like knowing her, that was kind of like comforting, getting there, not knowing anybody else. Like Josh is really busy with everybody, and then like, oh, hey Mia, oh, familiar face. So that was really cool. The death scene was awesome. So it was raining, obviously a challenge, but I would say my favorite part of the entire thing was when Henry was going to snap my neck in the death scene, and I wasn't quite ready for it. It was our first run, and it was just kind of like a little practice just to kind of like see the positioning of the hands, and he turned my neck and I wasn't ready, and it was sent like all these cracks down the right side. I'm like, oh, and he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And it was hilarious. It didn't hurt at all. Like I literally felt like a new person. It was kind of awesome. I felt amazing on one side. Like my range of motion was like all of a sudden fantastic, but he felt so bad. But that was like probably one of the funnier things that happened.
Emily is sitting there. She just had the super sexy air conditioner scene where she like turns the air conditioner on and starts blowing her, and you know, all that good stuff. And she sits back, and I snap her neck in the scene. And so the first take of us doing the actual like neck snap, I grabbed her head, and she was supposed to kind of lead my hand, but my hands led her head, and literally you hear, and I was like, holy shit! Like, I was like, if I actually killed you, this is gonna be really bad for this scene. And she's like, no, that felt really good. Like, she's like, it was really good. I'm like, thank God. Like, I literally was like, holy fuck, I've never done that to anybody. It was like the scariest thing in the world. Like, I was like, holy shit.
I originally wasn't supposed to die in this movie. I was kind of just going to drive off, and that was the end of my character. Josh was doing some rewrites for the script. He kind of came to me and Emily and asked us both if we wanted to do another scene together and end up dying. I definitely jumped at that chance just because it sounded like a lot of fun. The day came, and I already knew I was going to be in the woods. I was going to die in the woods, you know, after running through. And it ended up being pouring rain, a little chilly, but we kind of powered through. And as cold as it was and as happy as I was to take a hot shower after, it ended up being a lot of fun, and I think it really made it more dramatic and just kind of a creepier feel to it. Overall, it ended up being a really cool experience. I loved doing it, had so much fun. I don't know if I'll do it again. I probably will want to try since I've never done it before, so I don't know how my scenes are going to come out. But I hope everyone enjoys it, and I just hope you all know how much fun we had making it.
I'm chasing after Mia because she gets away kind of out of the car. And the day that we're shooting the scene, she's telling us how she's like a karate instructor, or she does martial arts and stuff. And I'm watching the scene where she's running through the woods, and her calves are fucking like they are rocks. And I smoke a pack a day. So the funniest part was the fact that she's supposed to have asthma in the scene, and I'm like, you're gonna hear Ghostface behind her being like, like, and she's like built like a shit brick house, like her brick shit house, and I was like, dude, there's no way. Like, that is the biggest suspension of disbelief in this thing alone. Like, my calves are jello, hers are fucking granite. Like, there's no way that this would happen in real life. And originally we were going to kind of pull a blooper on Josh, but it was raining out, so we wanted to kind of wrap it. But we were going to get to the point where she kind of gets down and she's trying to get to the inhaler, and I smack it out of her hand, but instead in the scene I was going to grab it and be like, oh, like, because I fucking needed it. We're running uphill through wet leaves, like, what the fuck? But yeah, no, but that was fun. That was actually a pretty fun day.
I got to be the umbrella holder while Josh did some of the filming in the rain in the woods with Mia and Henry, so that was kind of cool. I felt super important. I was long dead. I was rotting in the car, so I just figured I'd come out and hold the umbrella since, you know, nothing else to really do. So that was pretty cool. Josh told me to wear shoes because he was like, oh, we'll be trudging through the woods. And I'm thinking, well, I don't really think my scene is in the woods. I didn't think that I'd probably be getting out and like assisting with all this stuff. So of course I'm wearing flip-flops, it's pouring rain, we're walking through wet leaves. Josh is like, that's kind of why I told you to wear sneakers. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, right on. Yep, that's probably a good idea. Sure. Yeah. And then there's Mia, who's running in heels. Actually, I think she did most of her scenes not in heels, but she still had to trudge through a bunch of stuff in heels. So I was like, oh my gosh, girl, I do not envy you. At least I'm in my flops. I would say my favorite part of filming was getting to meet new people. Dalen's such a character. He was, got to know him and all his like backstory, and he flew in, and it was really interesting. Like, I had never met him before, didn't know anything about him, so we got to learn a lot about him. Erica, she's, you know, hairdresser, I had no idea. So it was really cool working with all these different people I had never met before, and like everyone just kind of brings something different to the table. So it was like kind of cool to work with everyone's different acting style. And then I would say the worst thing about filming would probably be that good old Manchester weather, the heat, I would say. The heat, the rain, it was kind of like trying to work against us, but you know, we kicked its ass. We made it through. We won. Thank you guys. We hope you enjoyed the movie. We put a lot of hard work and sweat into it. So I hope I see you guys again, maybe in the sequel, if Josh will have me back.
The gimmick to this is the cast provides their own wardrobe, even for their death scenes. So if they're not in an outfit that they want to get bloody, I'm not going to force them into that, especially when I'm adding in a scene. So I told them, I know the outfits that you guys were wearing in the previous scene, you weren't prepared to get bloody in. So I'm going to try to write you death scenes that don't involve any blood. So I knew I was going to do a neck break. I wasn't sure who was going to get it, and the girls kind of decided between themselves who was going to get the neck break and who was going to get the big chase scene through the woods. And Mia's a big runner in real life, so she decided that she would get the chase scene, and Emily would get her neck broken. And they were both game for that, so that was super, super fun. The idea for Mia's death scene, I love, and I can't take any credit for. I wrote to the cast of the movie, and I said, guys, I'm trying to come up with death scenes for Mia and Emily that don't involve any blood. Anyone have any ideas? And then Rachel came up with this disastrously torturous, heinous idea to have Mia die of her own accord, essentially, to have her have asthma and try to hit her inhaler or not be able to get to her inhaler, and then essentially she dies because she's getting chased and she has an asthma attack and dies. And the killer just kind of stands there and watches. And I love the sadisticness of that. And I told Rachel, I was like, I don't know if I want it to play out like that, but let me see. So I wrote the scene and it just clicked. I just love the way it worked out. And especially when we filmed in the rain, because Mia looks kind of cold, so she's kind of turning blue as she's choking to death. And Mia's performance in that scene, too, was just, like, mind-blowing to me. She did such a good job with the wheezing and the slow death, and then Henry in the killer costume. And it was actually pouring rain that day. Emily was over me and the camera holding an umbrella in the woods, and the rain was just really, really coming down. So, like, we were all getting soaked. I mean, Henry was in the costume, so he had a little bit more protection, but that costume's already heavy, so it must have been super heavy when it got wet, too. I think the lighting that day actually worked out really well, considering it was raining and stuff like that, too. But they did such a good job with their death scenes. Emily's gruesome neck break, even, like, her jaw kind of gets broken when she goes, and I just love that. My neck just cracked when I did that. And then Mia dying in the woods, I was so impressed. Like, I could tell that's what they actually wanted. They really wanted the chance to have a death scene, and it worked out so well. So I'm so grateful for all of them for coming back again after production was done to do that.
So overall, I would say that Stab 2 was probably the most fun I've had on a Stab movie. I really got to focus on the character. I was mainly acting. I helped a little bit offset, but or behind the scenes, but mostly this was just about, filming for my character. That was really my participation in this movie. It was just a really great experience. Sorry that I finally die in this movie. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry for those who will be upset about it. But I really hope you enjoy it. I know that this is probably one of Josh's favorite to write. It was definitely my favorite to act in. So yeah, I just really hope you enjoy.
It's always a great opportunity to meet new people and to catch up with old friends. That's what I love about having been part of the Stab movies so far. I met a lot of great people that I didn't know before that I've gone on to work with again. I've met people that I haven't worked with again, but we're still really good friends because we're part of this filmmaking community. So if it's something that you feel that you're interested in and might want to take that first step and you live around here, maybe you should find out. The reason you do it is it's sappy and it sounds kind of dumb, but it's for love of the fucking game. And if you're not willing to do something for free, to invest your own time, to invest something of yourself into your art, then I don't know what you're doing here. Low budget, no budget, that's where I live. You want to find me, you look there. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. We all put a lot of hard work and effort into these, and it's all for you guys. It's all for the fans. We don't get paid from this. We put all of our own time and effort and money into this. Josh has put a ton into these, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching.
Best part of filming, I think, as always, same with the last Stab movie, the people. Sherry, love you to pieces. Ethan, probably one of my favorite people that I've met doing this. Rachel, I finally get to meet Rachel this movie, and she was amazing. Henry was so much fun. Like, it's the people. The people are great. Being Deirdre, I didn't get to do a lot of, like, the actual stunt stuff. I mean, my death was not even... I'm not very good at death scenes, up until now. I think I nailed the death scenes this time. But yeah, even going back to Stab 5, I was just so nervous then. And filming with a coworker, I'm like, God, he's gonna make fun of me later. So I didn't go out for it. I feel like this is the first time I went for it, and I just didn't give a shit. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed what we've made for you, and on to the next one.
It's always a good time filming too, even on the hot days and the nasty days. You look back at them and you're like, man, that was an awesome opportunity and what a fun time I had. All right, Stabbers, I guess that's it for me. I hope you enjoy the movie, and I'll be back here or there sooner or later.
Stab 2 was an absolute blast to be a part of. I got to work with some really great people on this. People that I've shot behind the camera as a director, but now got to be in front with them, and that was really awesome. You know, everybody definitely, I think, Nicole, you definitely need to go into some sort of a boxing league, because fuck, dude, like. But no, this movie is going to be a blast. I can't wait to see it myself, and I hope you guys see it more than once. Keep watching it. Like, you keep watching them, he'll keep making them.
Stab 2 was like one of the funnest times I've had filming a Stab movie in a while, and I wasn't sure how much fun I was going to have when we started it. I'm not going to lie. I wrote another script. I was happy with the script. I wasn't super enthralled by the script. It wasn't my favorite script that I've ever written or anything like that. That still goes to Stab 6. I love Stab 6 for some reason. I'm just like obsessed with that whole script and that whole movie, no matter how low the production quality is. But now that filming is done and editing's done, I just look back on Stab 2 and I'm like, damn, that really was fun. And I think it helped that we spent so much time on that like ending scene and that opening scene, and we took the time to do those annoying reshoots and film in the 800-degree weather. Because, again, it's a collaborative project. These are my friends. These are people, some of them I didn't even know, that are now good friends of mine that came to work on something together, to do it just for the love of doing it and to have fun. And I think that is what shows in this movie, is that we had fun making it and that we tried as best as we could to make it better than the other ones have been, and to really just enjoy what we were doing behind the scenes, because we love making these movies for you guys. And for some people that don't want to come back for these movies anymore, they must have experienced some form of torture on my sets. I don't know. Because everyone that are in these usually wants to come back if timing allows, because it's just like hanging out with your friends, sometimes getting covered in blood and just shooting the shit and having a great time. The story and killing everyone off makes things challenging for the future, but it also opens up a whole new world of possibilities, where I'm looking at these reboot installments of the franchise kind of as like an anthology, so I can keep recycling the same people and bringing them back. They're not all connected to the previous one. Though Stab 2 was connected to the Stab reboot, it's still kind of its own standalone thing. You could watch Stab 2 without seeing the Stab reboot and just know that the cast members were in a movie together before this. So clearly we can't really continue the storyline of Stab 2 into Stab 3, so Stab 3 is going to be a little bit different. But I'm loving the idea of doing something like American Horror Story, where I keep bringing back the people that really want to be here and really have fun doing it and enjoy collaborating with other people, and bringing them back and having them constantly playing different characters in different settings and with different killers. And eventually everyone that's in these movies will have played killer, victim, survivor, and all of the above, you know? But overall, Stab 2 was super, super fun to make.